Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Joel, back again on his newly rechristened secondary channel, Joel Reads Comics, a channel that I'm hoping to use as your one-stop shop for longer Joel content. Obviously, of course, I've been at this for a very long time. I've been doing weekly reviews for, God, over a decade now, and I thought, hey, it would be cool to put some of these old comic reviews together in a big supercut, and I'd been thinking about this for a long time, and I think the first one that I really wanted to do was to compile a big, super long video on Charles Soule's 2015 Daredevil run. Why? Well, because of course, that's what Daredevil Born Again is based off of. Season 2 is coming out very soon. I want to try and have this video up to coincide with it. It's my first time doing it, and again, you gotta remember, Daredevil by Charles Soule, I covered these books like as they came out, again, over 10 years ago now, and I was a very different YouTuber back then. I was still figuring it out. In fact, I actually was missing 2 issues, issue 1 and issue 2, which I actually did on Comic Book Cast back in the day, and sadly those videos got deleted and lost to time, meaning that for the first time ever I had to actually do full-on re-reviews of a video for this supercut, which means that when you actually get a chance to watch it, it's going to be a little weird, because it's going to start out with the editing and, sound work and everything that you have come to expect from me on the other channel. Then it's going to get really bad. Again, I didn't know how to move the images back then for like a long time, but because I reviewed that book for so long, because it actually had a pretty long run, you can actually see me evolve and get better. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you're excited for Daredevil Born Again Season 2 as much as I am. So check out the video. Again, there's so much great stuff in here. Daredevil's black suit, Kingpin becoming mayor, Muse, so many of the other things that we're probably going to see in the show. And if people like this, I will try and make this a recurring thing. Tell me down below what other long-running series that I covered every issue of would you like to see me do a supercut of in the future. Matt Murdock is back in New York City. He's got himself a brand new costume, a brand new sidekick, and a brand new dark secret that threatens to tear him apart. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Daredevil, courtesy of lawyer-turned-comic writer Charles Soule, and find out exactly what happens next, shall we? So then, picking up more or less from where the Mark Waid run left off, Matt Murdock was in San Francisco, where he was fighting crime as, well, Matt Murdock, following his secret identity once again getting outed. But now he's back in his old stomping ground and ready to get back to business. Why, he's even sporting a new black costume, one that no doubt is meant to invoke the black costume that he's wearing in the Daredevil Netflix show Season 1, having just dropped not too long ago. I like the suit. The red and the black play nice with each other, and in fact, the entire artistic theory of this first arc is all about trying to include as many reds and blacks and make them pop on the page as humanly possible. Now, Daredevil isn't back in New York long before he eventually has to try and stop a murder. A group of thugs working for a brand new crime boss calling himself Tenfingers try to murder one of their own by throwing him off a bridge. Daredevil jumps in the water to save this guy, whose name we later learn is Billy Lee. Now, while Daredevil may have amazing, superhumanly sharp senses in the water, all those same senses don't exactly work the way they're supposed to. In fact, had Billy gotten himself thrown into the deeper end of the harbor, there's a good chance both him and Matt would be dead right now. Thankfully, that's not the case, and Matt is able to rally, taking the fight directly to the thugs who did the throwing. Only, here's the problem. These guys may look like your standard New York underworld shit kickers, but as Matt mentions in his internal monologue, they all fight like kung fu monks. They've received serious training, which makes the fight an uphill battle. Thankfully, though, Daredevil doesn't have to go it alone, as he is assisted by a brand new character named Blindspot, a young man from Chinatown with a suit that allows him to turn invisible. Their mentor-mentee relationship no doubt meant to very much mirror the classic relationship Matt had with his own teacher, Stick. After the fight is won, Matt decides to try and get Billy Lee to safety at the only place he knows that he can lay low, the home of Foggy Nelson. Only, here's where things get really interesting. You see, no one else can actually seem to remember that Daredevil and Matt Murdock are the same person, despite the fact that his identity was outed not that long ago, and that he was fighting crime unmasked in another city. Oh, Foggy remembers who Matt is and their shared history, but he actually kinda resents that Matt would put all this pressure on him. Why does he have to keep this oh-so-important secret? As Matt puts it, this is just the way things have to be right now. Daredevil will serve justice in the dark, while Matt Murdock will return to doing what he does best, serving justice in the daylight. And hey, speaking of which, we see that Matt actually has himself a brand new job. He's actually on the other side of the law now, working as an assistant district attorney for the city of New York, though his new bosses don't seem to like him all that much, as they have forced him to set up his office in an old abandoned elevator shaft. And I mean, hey, it's not like he can complain about the view or anything. He is blind after all. Now, wouldn't you know it, but Matt's very first client turns out to be none other than Billy Lee, the man he saved. This guy is an informant, and despite Daredevil being so nice to him the night before, lawyer Matt totally puts the boots to him in order to try and get closer to the Church of the Tenfingers. Yes, for you see, this Tenfingers guy isn't just your regular old run-of-the-mill Chinatown gang boss. He's actually a self-styled ancient mystic in the same vein as Big Trouble in Little China's Lo Pan. He collects fingers from his henchmen after they failed to kill Billy, and now he plans to go after him in court by sending a trusted assassin by the name of Samuel Chung, who, as we learn, is the civilian alter ego of Blindspot. Yes, that's right, everybody. Daredevil's brand new sidekick just so happens to be playing both sides of the fence. Now, as issue 2 begins, we get treated to a wonderful scene of juxtaposition as both Daredevil and Tenfingers prepare for the big battle ahead. Matt tells us that Tenfingers has been targeting the local immigrant community, promising them not only salvation, but also protection from deportation. His cult has grown in power over the last several months, even absorbing several of Chinatown's gangs, as well as trying to achieve their own tax-exempt status. Which, you know, as superhero man of faith, has certainly got to mess with Matt on multiple levels. Now, on the big day of the trial, Blindspot and 2 other men raid the courthouse, stealthily, even managing to get to Billy without Matt's amazing hearing being able to pick up on their presence. Oh, they don't kill Billy. In fact, they might have actually done something much worse, collecting his fingers for their leader. Though, in truth, Tenfingers is pissed at Samuel's inability to follow orders, especially as Blindspot's own mother is actually a high-ranking member of the Church of the Tenfingers. She's even part of a special elite subgroup known as the Eights. Later that night, Blindspot reports to Daredevil for training. Matt attempts to impart on Blindspot the important lessons about being a hero, mainly that you can't rely on your powers all the time. Being a real crime fighter is more than just your suit, and you have to be ready to fight at a moment's notice with whatever you happen to have on hand. Samuel thinks that Daredevil is a bit of a hard-ass as far as being a teacher goes, though Matt fires back by saying, if you think I'm a hard-ass, you should have seen the guy who trained me. It's during the training Blindspot feels comfortable enough to open up to Matt about why he wanted to become a hero in the first place, mainly to protect his already vulnerable and marginalized community from the likes of Tenfingers, who is eating them from the inside out by exploiting the desperation of migrant workers who often feel, well, invisible. Hey, it's thematic, because that's Blindspot's power, being invisible. Inspired by his new sidekick's words, Daredevil and Blindspot attempt to infiltrate Tenfingers' compound before he can complete a magical ritual that will imbue his most loyal followers with magical might. Only, here's the big twist, Daredevil instantly recognizes the kind of magic that Tenfingers using. He's fought against it most of his career. You see, this Tenfingers guy is actually a fraud. He's not a mystic by his own merits. He stole the power from the Hand Ninja Clan, and you better believe the Hand does not take kindly to thieves under any circumstances, and as such dispatch their own hit squad to deal with the guy, even if it means catching Daredevil and Blindspot in the crossfire. Hand ninjas are swarming all over the Church of the Tenfingers like ants swarming over a picnic. For a second, Matt Murdock truly thinks about leaving the cultists to their own devices, but he can't allow that to happen because innocent people would almost certainly be caught in the crossfire of these two groups fighting. We do, however, get some interesting insight and exposition from the Hand ninjas during the fight. Apparently, Tenfingers was actually a member of the Hand before absconding with some of their most dangerous magic. Dude, evil ninja magic is not like stealing office supplies from work, man. People are most definitely going to come looking for that stuff, and they do. The combined force of Tenfingers and Daredevil eventually end up pushing the bad guys back. Of course, now our hero Daredevil feels quite dirty knowing he helped out Tenfingers. Later that night, Daredevil meets up with his sidekick Blindspot and congratulates him on holding his own during that hand fight. It's pretty good considering that this is still so early in his career. Unfortunately, Sammy got hurt pretty bad in the fight and he can't go to the hospital because being an illegal immigrant, he doesn't have papers, nor does he have the 20 grand to pay for any sort of medical
service. Luckily, Matt is able to put him in contact with the night nurses, or as Blindspot puts it, oh, you mean superheroes? We have a school nurse? How cool is that? Well, you know, Matt's superhero life isn't doing him any favors right now, and sadly his work life is about to turn just as sour. His boss is royally ticked at our hero for fumbling the Tenfingers case, but more than that, he's ticked at him for letting an important witness get mutilated while under court protection. It's because of this Matt's going to be punished. He's getting busted all the way down to night court. Oh no, not an old sitcom starring Richard Mull. Yes, kids, that is an old reference. Understandably, this is pretty terrible for Matt Murdock, as he does all of his most important Daredevil work by night. And now it seems like he's going to be forced to choose between his life as Daredevil and his life as a lawyer. Yep, today can't possibly get much worse for the man without fear. Oh, no, wait, it totally gets worse, because Matt's next appointment, as we find out, is with Tenfingers, who wants to set the record straight with the court, saying, I'm not really a villain, I am a good guy, and I'm going to tell you why. So, as the comic opens, Daredevil is in Captain America's old neighborhood, hunting down a bunch of criminals who are supplying the local gangs with high-powered explosives. Even though Steve doesn't wear the old Star-Spangled Man costume anymore, he is still very much a hero and very much hooked up to all the goings-on. Daredevil is, of course, more than happy to help Steve clear out his old haunt, but the thing is, it was actually Matt who called him. Why, you might be asking? Was he looking for direction? No, he feels quite guilty, and as we find throughout the course of this story, Steve no longer remembers that Daredevil is Matt Murdock. Heck, he doesn't even remember that he's blind, for that matter. The story is also intercut with Matt meeting with Tenfingers. This crazy cult leader goes on about how he's a good guy, how he's actually doing God's work in Chinatown. The disenfranchised come to him when they can't come to no one else. He's using the power he stole from the Hand to do good in the world, and isn't that all anyone could ask for? This conversation clearly rocks Matt to the core and definitely hits upon his old Catholic guilt. He always thought of his amazing powers as a gift from God, and to not use them for justice would, you know, be a sin in its own right. And to think an evil villain like Tenfingers has basically the same thought process, well, that makes Matt sick to his stomach. Matt makes short, bloody work of everyone guarding the bomb factory, but as he gets closer to the bosses, they decide to light their stockpile ablaze, going to take the entire building, maybe even the whole block with them if Daredevil can't defuse the bomb. And while all this is going on, Samuel goes to the Church of the Tenfingers to try and reason with his mother, saying that if the Hand ninjas attacked them before, it's only a matter of time till they come back, and they're not going to stop till Tenfingers and everyone who protects him is dead. Sadly, Samuel's mom is totally drinking the Tenfingers Kool-Aid, and it seems that he and her are in something of a relationship, so she tells her son to straighten up and fly right and understand all the good that this creep is doing for Chinatown. It's at that point Samuel reveals to his mother that he's Blindspot, Daredevil's apprentice and the one who helped break up their meeting the night before. Needless to say, Mom is none too happy. Steve attempts to walk Daredevil through the diffusion of the bomb, but as I mentioned before, he doesn't know that Daredevil is Matt Murdock, doesn't even know that he's blind, and when Daredevil cannot see the color of the cords, he simply just grabs one of the bomb makers and tells him to turn it off or else he goes up with him. And as the comic winds down, our heroes save the day. Matt desperately wants to confess to Steve what he did and why he can't remember, but he cowards out at the last minute. And so this mystery looks to continue a mystery. On the final page, we can see Samuel's prediction was right on the money, because the Hand returns once again to seek revenge on Tenfingers and his church. So as the comic opens, the Hand unleashes its deadliest secret weapon against the Tenfingers cult. That would be the Fist, a horrible rotting corpse golem filled with more blood magic than you could shake a stick at. Stick. You know what, that's a pun and I honestly didn't mean it to be. The monster has come to enact its revenge on the thief Tenfingers for stealing Hand magical secrets. Matt is in court currently, working the night shift as punishment for screwing up the Tenfingers investigation, and sadly he can't leave to go fight the monster. I mean, he does it anyway, but he really shouldn't have. It's interesting, the only reason Matt knows about what's going on at the Tenfingers church right now is because Blindspot told his Twitter followers to all say the words at once to get Matt's attention. Very clever, Sam, very clever. Now, while Tenfingers is the Fist's primary target, he's going to hurt a lot of innocent people trying to get to him. In fact, Tenfingers, you know, that's what he's banking on, in fact. He hopes if the monster kills enough people, that will slake his bloodlust and allow him to skip out on the tab. Daredevil quickly makes the scene, and he's going to have to pull out all the stops if he wants to defeat this Fist creature that knows no pain, knows no fear, and has no traditional weaknesses. Meanwhile, Blindspot Blindspot is fighting his own uphill battle. After all, Sam wanted to be seen as the true hero of Chinatown, and like a good hero, he wants to save all the innocent people who have fallen under Tenfingers' spell, even if that means having to fight his own mother and Tenfingers' elite to do so. Jeez, and you thought you had a complicated relationship with your mother. In the end, Mommy Dearest does end up doing the right thing, but she goes about it in probably the most brutal, cold-hearted way imaginable before leaving. Daredevil only wins his fight with the Fist by figuring out that the thing isn't technically alive, and because of it he can stop pulling his punches and pull out the sort of brutal kill techniques that he wouldn't normally use. So as the comic winds down, Daredevil and Blindspot share their victory for a little bit, Tenfingers having been taken out during all the chaos by another agent. Daredevil knows Sam is lying about the fate of his mother in an attempt to protect her, but he can't exactly be too critical of his young protege right now, considering that honesty has always been an issue for Matt Murdock. It's a bittersweet victory to be sure, but Daredevil knows all about those now, doesn't he? So as the comic opens, Daredevil is doing what he does best, hanging off a ledge and brooding. He's supposed to meet Elektra here later that night, only when she shows up she decides to pick a fight with him. How did we get here, you might be asking yourself? Well, to answer that question, it's time for a good old-fashioned comic book flashback. You see, Matt was in court prosecuting a case when he smelled Elektra in the air. A common enough occurrence, right? But here's where things start to get a little bit more difficult and a little bit more complicated. As you'll remember, Matt Murdock did something when he came back to New York, something that made everyone in the superhero community and even the people around him forget that he was Daredevil. Well, that includes Elektra as well, and so Matt tries to not show his hand by being surprised that she's shown up. All the same stuff that happened between Matt Murdock and Elektra in the past did indeed happen. The only thing now is Elektra thinks that Matt Murdock and Daredevil are two separate people. That's really weird, right? Well, if you can believe it or not, it actually gets weirder. You see, Matt, in his Catholic guilt of which he is so famous for, he starts to feel bad for Elektra and indeed all the women who had been with him and been with Daredevil at the same time, thinking, oh no, I made them all philanderers. Really, Matt? You caused mass amnesia and that's what you feel bad about? Oh well, to each his own, I guess. Back in the present, Elektra is unrelenting in her attack. It's clear that she aims to kill Daredevil right here, right now, all the while she blames him for something he did over and over again. Now, if you're anything like me reading this through the first time, you would think she's talking about the whole mind wipe thing, and Daredevil thinks this is true too. Watching his master get the crap kicked out of him, Blindspot attempts to jump in the fight and help out, which is a really bad idea because the vengeful Elektra ends up breaking the poor kid's arm. Yeah, now that is what I call some on-the-job experience right there. In another flashback, we see Elektra and Matt going out for a drink. It's there that Elektra confides in Matt, saying that she needs some help and that only Daredevil can assist her right now. She also says that she knows that he and him have some sort of dealings and that he could facilitate a meeting. Matt's not an idiot. He knows this is a bad idea. He knows that he shouldn't do it. He doesn't want to do it, but in the end, well, he's just a big old sucker for Elektra and can't say no to her when it counts. Elektra continues to brutally beat the ever-loving crap out of Daredevil, who feels equal parts ashamed and also not wanting to raise his hand to a woman that he's had feelings for. It's only as the comic winds down, however, do we actually find out what Elektra is upset about, and that is she is angry because Daredevil may have had a hand in taking away her daughter? Say what? So as we join the comic, a very confused Daredevil is facing down a very enraged Elektra. Elektra is out for Daredevil's blood right now because she believes he had something to do with the disappearance of her daughter, Iona. But wait, you're all probably thinking, and I know I was too, Elektra doesn't have a daughter named Iona, or does she? The way Elektra tells it is that it wasn't so long after the death of her father, the Greek ambassador, that she went back to Asia pregnant with someone's child, assumedly Matt's, but we're never exactly told. She gave birth to the daughter while training with Stick and the Chased. It was after that that Stick took the baby and put her in foster care, which Elektra was happy about considering that she had already gone down the path of the Hand and evil demon ninjas, figuring that, you know, she wouldn't be a very fit mother at this day and time. Someone did send Elektra a phone showing the daughter all grown up now, and so obviously mom believes that the daughter is in danger. The truly funny thing is Matt cannot see this cell phone video, and that is because he is blind, and Elektra does not know that he is blind because she doesn't know he's Matt Murdock, because obviously everyone had their minds wiped. This situation is getting crazier and crazier by the minute, but if nothing else, it does mean Matt is forced to look for help in the form of Foggy Nelson, one of the few people who is still aware of his double life. Foggy, as we find out, is actually doing pretty alright for himself. He's running his own firm, and he does agree to help Matt for old time's sake, although he does take the chance to chastise him, saying, you know, balancing too many secrets and lies isn't good for anybody. You know, even when you're a lawyer and 90% of your job description is secrets and lies. Oh, but dumb tish, lawyer humor. It's at this time Matt also has to field a call from Linda Carter. No, not the actress, the night nurse. She's looking after Blindspot right now, who had his arm surgically broken by Electra in the last issue. Linda says while she's always happy to help out Daredevil in his time of need, she is, however, forced to raise an eyebrow considering how young his newest protege is and how badly he's been hurt. Sam won't be going back to work anytime soon, but luckily he's picked up a lot of sick days, and wouldn't you know it, a lawyer friend of Daredevil's named Matt Murdock needs some help with filing. Daredevil goes to meet Elektra once again to share the information that Foggy helped him uncover, namely that the phone he was given was completely blank. There's no video on it at all. This means two absolutely terrible things. One, Elektra is seeing things, and two, someone is trying to turn her against Daredevil. This means our hero is forced to follow Elektra later that night to see where she goes and meets who sent her the phone in the first place. Unfortunately, this guy is yet another middleman, a middleman who comes packing a Manchurian Candidate trigger phrase of all things. It's everything Daredevil can do to try and stop Elektra from killing this poor guy and making the trail go cold completely. Once Elektra is back to herself, she is completely shocked at the idea that she actually believed she had a child, or that the anger she felt was real to her. No doubt whoever's pulling the strings in this situation has a great deal of pull resources and a major hatred for Daredevil. While he may not personally be responsible for getting Elektra involved in this, he sure feels he is. Alrighty then, so as the comic opens up, we can see that Matt Murdock is in the Sin City of China, competing in a poker tournament against several very unsavory individuals. Ooh, how very, very Casino Royale. What kind of card player is Daredevil, you might be asking yourself? Well, he can't see his cards to save his life, and he's still not letting on that he's blind to everyone else at the table. But when your abilities essentially make you a human lie detecting machine, that means nobody, and I mean nobody, can ever bluff you. Using these skills, our hero is more than able to breeze through the semi-finals and on his way to the final part of the tournament against the casino's champion. So right now you're all probably wondering, what on earth is Daredevil doing in China? Heck, how could he even afford to go to China on a simple district attorney's salary? Well, as we see in a flashback, he was pounding the pavement in New York looking for something that Black Cat stashed away in China. Now, they don't exactly say what it is in this issue, but I can only assume this is somehow tied to what was going on with Electra in the previous issue. Now, this is a dangerous Triad-owned casino, and because of that, they have certain precautions in place to make sure that nobody ever wins the tournament. Mainly, they've hired a psychic, Alexander Apex, to be their champion. Apex had tried to swindle the casino once before using his powers, but he was caught and he was given two options: either come work for us and make sure no one else wins, or, you know, we could kill you. Now, the showdown that Daredevil and Apex has is actually quite amazing. You see, the way Apex's powers work is that he can see through your eyes using his psychic powers and look at your cards, only because Daredevil is blind, he can't see anything. Now, years worth of being a superhero and being trained by Stick and the Chase, Daredevil has learned to protect his mind from certain psychic attacks. What we essentially have here is one giant waiting game. Can Daredevil keep Apex out of his mind long enough to win the poker game? At first, things don't look too good. Apex comes at our hero with absolutely everything he has. That is until Daredevil has the idea to change the venue mentally. It's not going to be a sword fight in the mountains. Oh no, it's going to be a boxing match. This manages to be just enough for Daredevil to win the day. Unfortunately, he's nowhere near closer to his goal, and the Triad has decided to comp him a night's stay in their nicest suite, basically their way of saying, hey, don't go too far before we can get our money back. Luckily, Matt Murdock has no intention of ringing up $10 million worth of room service and pay-per-view movies, although really that does sound like a fun time. No, he's got a job to do, and he's going to get some help in the form of Spider-Man, who, if you've been reading his book, you'll know he's camped out in Asia as well, so he's the perfect person to team up with as the comic ends. Alright, so picking up from where the last issue left off, Daredevil and Spider-Man meet on top of the Triad-controlled casino in China. Spider-Man says he would do anything to help out Daredevil, his oldest and dearest crime-fighting buddy. Be sure to keep this in mind for later. Daredevil's prize as of right now is a leather-bound suitcase that's being held by one of the Triad thugs. What's in the suitcase, you might be asking? Well, we don't know, and in fact, Spider-Man asked Daredevil several times, only for him to tell him absolutely nothing. It's important to keep in mind too, much like everyone else around Daredevil, Spider-Man may remember all the adventures he's had with Daredevil over the years, but he doesn't remember that Daredevil is Matt Murdock. One of the thugs takes off with the case and hops a helicopter. Luckily, through the use of Daredevil's sonar and one of Spider-Man's spider trackers, they're able to track the aircraft all the way back to Hong Kong. They do this, by the way, in quite possibly the most creative way I've seen in a long time, via Spider-Man hydrofoil, by which I mean they web up a boat and just kind of parasail. At first, Daredevil actually doesn't want to do this because he thinks it's silly, but eventually the good-natured Spider-Man manages to wear him down, and he does it for just a little bit. Peter says that heroes like them need to take some joy in their work from time to time, or else they'll all end up like the Punisher, and that would be bad for everybody. You know, I mentioned it elsewhere, but I think it bears repeating here. Writer Charles Soule has a real way with Peter Parker. He really does capture that fun-loving, freewheeling guy that we all know and love. Soule's Spider-Man is also really funny. And yet, as a writer, Soule also proves that he can really turn the grit and the grime on and off. You see, Daredevil actually has Spider-Man leave the room to track down the case while he brutalizes some thugs. And it's at this point right here the comic gets really good. You see, Spider-Man has the suitcase, but he doesn't want to hand it back to Daredevil right away. Not until he tells him what's inside it. Daredevil wonders why Spider-Man is being so, suspicious of his oldest and dearest crime-fighting friend, and the answer might surprise you. You see, Spider-Man says that he's had his mind tampered with enough times to know when something's up, and every time he tries to recall some memories of Daredevil, he knows there's some pieces missing. This leads to a scuffle between the two friends, and Peter even threatens to drop the suitcase if Matt doesn't come clean with him, and he kind of does, but kind of doesn't. The way Daredevil tells it, that suitcase contains some very important information on the crime lord Black Cat and her criminal organization. He also says the reason that Spider-Man and others can't quite remember Daredevil is all part of a big plan that involved him coming back to New York, changing his costume, and hopefully, at the end of the day, taking down all the major criminal organizations in the city. And he could sadly only do it the way he's doing now. Now, how much truth is in this statement is still yet to be seen, but it proves to be enough to win over Spider-Man. Alright, so as the comic opens up, Matt Murdock is doing classic Daredevil stuff, kicking ass and taking names. He talks about in New York you can know every block like the back of your hand, then go one block over and be completely and utterly surprised by what you see. Granted, when you're Daredevil, that's something often ends up being nameless thugs, and when you're a nameless thug in New York, that's something you end up seeing as Daredevil's billy club crashing into your dome. Now, at work for Matt, things aren't nearly as glamorous. He is, however, getting a helping hand from Sam, aka his sidekick Blindspot. Granted, Sam doesn't know that Daredevil is Matt Murdock or vice versa. In fact, Sam is being so helpful as a legal aid, Daredevil's trying to think of reasons to keep him on just a little bit longer. He does, however, decide to give him the night off so he can go superheroing. After all, he's not unlike Matt, and he couldn't wait for the day to be over so he could get out and superhero too back in the day. It would seem after bungling the Tenfingers case, poor Matt Murdock has taken the night shift, which is basically the death shift with a bunch of people who truly hate him and don't trust him. Matt, however, wants to try and be good at his job and power through this as best as he can. Unfortunately, his night is about to take a major left turn. You see, Blindspot, who has fashioned himself as the would-be protector of Chinatown, set up a little shrine where people could leave notes to Blindspot, basically hot tips about what crimes were going down in the neighborhood. Sam tried to investigate one, but quickly got in over his head, and because of that, he has no one else to turn to but Daredevil. This means Matt is forced to abandon work for the night and face the wrath of all of his co-workers come tomorrow morning, but Blindspot did the right thing calling him because he just landed face first into one of the weirdest cases Daredevil has ever seen. And that is the body of a dead janitor complete with a portrait made entirely out of blood. And not just one person's blood either. Daredevil, using his super sense of smell, is able to decipher that there's actually hundreds of people's blood in this one painting. Yep, Blindspot hasn't been a hero in New York for too long, but as the comic ends, it's clear he already has a villain gunning for him. Alright, so as the comic opens up, we see an Inhuman in New York getting mugged by a group of gangsters, only that's what we think it is at first. Upon closer inspection, we quickly discover that these so-called gangbangers consider themselves to be concerned citizens. They fear this guy because he's an Inhuman and they don't want to bring any trouble to the neighborhood. As we find out, this Inhuman has lived in this part of town forever. He's a shop owner and his Inhuman power, well, it's kind of lame. He can create snowflakes at night. Before this poor unfortunate soul can get his head kicked in by all these angry would-be vigilantes, he's saved at the last second by an even more mysterious vigilante. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, what about that strange painting from last issue, the one that Blindspot found, the one that was made up of the blood of hundreds of missing people? Well, that's where things start to get really complicated. You see, Daredevil and Blindspot just couldn't move evidence, and while the cops are running their tests and everything, the creep who owns the building decides that he could make a tidy profit off this. He wants to start selling tickets that night, $20 a pop for people to come and see the macabre painting. He, however, runs into interference from a local councilwoman who says that her niece was one of the dead people whose blood made up that painting. The building owner is as stubborn as he is greedy, and it's clear he's not going to back down. Because of this, the councilwoman decides to get some legal power behind her. It's because of this the district attorney's office decides to turn over these complicated legal matters to Matt Murdock to see that the art gallery gets shut down. And while Matt may think that the guy doing this is a tragedy, profiteer, and human garbage, he's really in the doghouse with his bosses at the district attorney's office right now, so he kinda has to play ball on this one. You know, it's either that or learn to start practicing law from one of those refrigerator boxes. To help him through this matter, Matt decides to meet up with his old buddy and former law partner, Foggy Nelson. Now again, what happened between these two, much like how everyone in New York forgot who Daredevil is still very much shrouded in mystery. In fact, Foggy even mentions Matt's last girlfriend, Kristen, and how she still very much wants to see Matt, even though Matt doesn't seem to want to see her for whatever reason. The mysterious artistic killer, who is later renamed Vincent Van Gogh, and oh man, I really hope that's not his supervillain name, because if so, it's super lame, makes an appearance later that night at the gallery opening. He defaces the painting and in classic movie serial killer fashion calls out the heroes to the site of his next major crime. The next piece of murder disguised as performance art turns out to be a mosaic piece filled with a bunch of dead, stuffed Inhumans, including the one from the beginning of the issue. This case was already getting out of control fast, and now that we have these dead Inhumans, it means the NYPD and Matt Murdock are going to have to work closer with New Attilan security, which is actually pretty fitting when we stop and consider Charles Soule also writes the Inhuman book, and in that series he created a brand new character who's the head of New Attilan security and also a former New York cop. Matt's heightened Daredevil senses tell him that the killer might not actually be too far away from the crime scene. He suits up and heads to the roof where he comes face to face with Van Gogh. Like, we see our new villain for this story arc, and his name is Muse, and god damn it is this dude creepy. Just look at him, he makes my skin crawl. Turns out he's more than just your regular run-of-the-mill serial killer with a gimmick, though. He actually does seem to possess some sort of superpowers that throw off Daredevil's super senses. Moreover than that, the dude goes on a crazy spiel about how he doesn't consider himself a murderer, he's an artist. All those Inhumans in his bloody tableau, they wanted to die. In fact, this dude is such the pretentious artist, he manages to sneak away from Daredevil by hitting him with a flashbang. Not a grenade, a flashbang, just, you know, loud noises and bright lights. You get it, man? I'm making a statement on supervillainy. Now, as Muse, this particular serial killer, has been targeting Inhumans, that means the New Attilan Security Service has been brought on to help oversee the investigation, and their boss, Frank McGee, aka Nur, is going to be the one that Matt Murdock is going to have to cozy up to if he wants his office to stay in the loop about all the goings-on. You know, Daredevil and this guy actually make for quite the odd couple. Matt Murdock can't see anything, while meanwhile Frank can create massive light bursts with his eyes that act like cameras. McGee basically says that if Matt Murdock wants to stay involved in the investigation, he's going to have to ask for the okay from Queen Medusa herself, which, you know, Matt Murdock's not going to make that long trip, but Daredevil sure is. Daredevil asks the Queen nicely that the NYPD can stay involved in the investigation, only to get shot down several times. Apparently for Queen Medusa, this is an honor and pride thing. They need to solve the case to prove to their people and any new Inhumans that they need not fear while Queen Medusa is in control. Of course, she doesn't come out and say that. In fact, we don't find any of this out until Matt Murdock talks to Frank McGee later on. In fact, Daredevil greatly oversteps his boundaries, and because of that, Karnak attempts to throw him out. Daredevil versus Karnak, of course, being one of those comic book fanboy dream matches. A man
man with no powers but who has trained his other senses to superhuman heights, versus a guy with the abilities to see the faults in all things. They actually have a pretty evenly matched fight. However, Daredevil manages to get the upper hand right before Karnak can figure out that he's blind. Because hey, isn't that just Daredevil in a nutshell for you? He takes his biggest flaw and makes it one of his greatest strengths. Well, that certainly was a bust, make no mistake, but Daredevil did end up winning Frank McGee's respect, so there's certainly that. As the comic winds down, he gets a call from his friend Blindspot, who's still working at the law offices. It looks like our heroes aren't going to have to search very hard for Muse because he's already there and already taken people hostage. Okay then, so picking up from where the last issue left off, Muse, the terrifying Inhuman serial killer, took over the courthouse where Matt Murdock works. On the scene is Sam, aka Blindspot, Daredevil's newest apprentice. Blindspot desperately wants to give chase to this guy, but Daredevil isn't sure. It's incredibly dangerous and he's not sure if Blindspot is ready for this, but as it stands right now, he's the best hope of saving the judge who got kidnapped. Blindspot impresses in this issue, showing just how theatric and over the top he is as an evil artist. He puts on a crazy fireworks display to cover his escape and keep both the cops and Daredevil busy for a bit. The chase gets taken down in the sewers, and we can see that Muse is working on another terrifying blood portrait like the one that caught Daredevil's eye in the first place. For this, he's kidnapped a lawyer as well as 2 cops. Oh, but just like any self-involved, pretentious artist, he wonders, is this too on the nose? Are people gonna get this? Blindspot, making great use of his invisibility tech, manages to sneak on in and rescue the people while Muse isn't looking, even though doing so makes him a target for this crazy person. You'll remember, it was Muse who actually sent a letter to Blindspot about the original blood painting. As Muse puts it, he was drawn to Blindspot because he believes he was a kindred spirit, someone who too wanted to be famous, who wanted to be revered, which is why he put up that drop box in the middle of Chinatown. Furthermore, the creepy artist has decided, what would really make his commentary on Law and Order in Marvel's New York sing, a dead vigilante with blood to add to the painting. The 2 superpowered individuals would end up chasing and fighting each other all over the sewer. Just when Blindspot's suit is about to run out of power, he makes it for an exit, only to be dragged down below, with Daredevil listening on the other side. Alright then, so picking up from where the last issue left off, Daredevil and his new partner, the Inhuman Frank McGee, find Blindspot's phone at the courthouse. Matt, as you might have guessed, is freaking out over this whole thing. He hasn't had a sidekick for very long at all, and now he might very well have a dead sidekick on his hands. Don't worry, old hornhead, Batman goes through how many sidekicks? We get a really great little scene wherein Daredevil begins to meditate, blocking out all the other noise of the city so he can single in on Blindspot wherever he may be. Unfortunately, poor Samuel has been brought into the creep shack of Muse, where he keeps all his body parts for his art projects. One of these dead people just so happens to be Tenfingers, the evil cult leader who was messing with Sam's mom in the previous storyline. Oh really, so it was Muse who killed him, go figure. This Banksy from hell continues to wax poetic about his artwork, the fragility of life, and what he plans to do with the time he has left, figuring that it's only a matter of time before he ends up getting arrested or even killed, but what he really wants to do is put Blindspot into his next big work of art. Thankfully, Daredevil manages to show up just in time to try and make the save, only save is debatable because as soon as Muse gets cornered, he decides to gouge Blindspot's eyes out. Oh wow, okay, you know what, that is a genuinely shocking twist that I did not see coming, and if they play this right, this could actually be really huge. It's here too we also find out all those people Muse kidnapped for his original blood painting are still alive and still able to be saved, but first Daredevil is ready to get a little payback on the guy. Daredevil threatens to break all the bones in his body, and we actually get a really awesome fight scene wherein they battle completely in the dark. In the end though, it's ultimately Frank McGee and the Inhuman Special Forces that end up making the real caller on this one. Muse will go back to the Inhuman City to face Inhuman justice. And hey, you know what, while they're at it, Inhuman doctors are going to see what they can do for all the people who are hurt in Muse's rampage, including Blindspot. In a nice change of pace, Sam actually doesn't blame his mentor for what happened with him. In fact, he says as long as they got their bad guy, it was all worth it as the comic ends. Alrighty then, so for those who need a bit of a refresher course, Samuel Chung, Daredevil's new superhero in training, who goes by the name Blindspot, had his eyes gouged out at the end of the last arc by a supervillain. This latest tragedy causes Matt Murdock to go into something of an existential crisis, and anyone who has read Daredevil for a long period of time knows that Matt often invites horrors into the lives of those around him, even those he tries his hardest to protect. He swears that he won't let Blindspot end up like his father, Elektra, Karen Page, and indeed a lot of people who claim to love him. It's here Charles Soule actually brings up a really interesting piece of continuity from the previous Mark Waid run. You'll recall during Daredevil
Daredevil's last battle with his arch foe Bullseye, the baddie had essentially created a serum that allowed a person to have all the same powers of Daredevil by recreating the accident that gave Matt his powers in the first place. Matt figures if he can get that serum and give it to Blindspot, he'll at least be able to live a semi-normal life and perhaps still be able to fight crime should he want to. The main thrust of this story then becomes, how is Daredevil going to get Bullseye out of hiding? And the answer is, well, quite simple. He's going to take a hit out on himself. Yeah, that's right. Daredevil sells a couple of his old costumes in billy clubs, goes to the bar with No Name, a famous supervillain hangout in the Marvel universe, and puts a hit out on himself. A big juicy prize like this means D and C list villains from across the Marvel universe come out of the woodwork to try and claim the money for themselves, which means Daredevil runs himself ragged, beating these costume freaks down over the course of a week. At his absolute lowest and most self-hating point, Matt Murdock decides to look for help in the form of religion. Again, he doesn't have Foggy or Kristen to rely on, so this is basically the only thing he's got going for him right now. This means we get introduced to a brand new and, might I say, very fascinating character named Father Jordan, a tough, no-nonsense priest who talks with Matt about the unfairness of the universe, the existence of good and evil and God's greater plan, and it's also revealed that this dude might actually be part of a secret religious military order. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with this guy. By the end of the week, Daredevil just manages to escape death at the hands of an Inhuman trying to claim the reward, but in doing so, he is able to draw Bullseye out for a final confrontation. And I'm sure some of you out there are asking, wait, didn't Bullseye die in a previous story? Wasn't he killed by Electra? My answer to that is, Secret Wars. Let's go with that. Now, if issue 15 was a great setup for this newest arc, then issue 16 is where they really start paying stuff off. It's an entire issue told in the time it takes from Bullseye's gun to fire a bullet and reach Matt on the opposite rooftop. A beaten down Daredevil begins to think to himself, maybe he should just let the bullet hit him. Maybe he should just let this be the way he dies. Would anyone really miss him if he was gone? He thinks back to all his previous adventures and all the people that he's let down, and he truly does think that maybe this should be the way he dies. But once again, he thinks back to his time with Father Jordan and the discussion they had. Matt comes to the conclusion that maybe he shouldn't be asking God to make a deal in this situation. Maybe he should be asking the devil to make a deal. And that deal is quite simply the universe can pile all the horrors, all the death, and all the tragedy it wants on him, but Daredevil will still fight for all he's worth until the bitter end. With newfound strength, Daredevil manages to defeat Bullseye and get the Ikari serum, only when he goes to give it to Samuel, he's completely gone, taken from the hospital by his mother, who you'll recall was a Tenfinger cultist. Now that's a hell of a lot to take in all at once, I will agree, but Charles Soule saves the biggest bomb for the final page. Now all throughout this new series, we found that Daredevil was somehow able to make everyone in New York forget that he was ever Matt Murdock, but once again, Matt goes to Father Jordan and says that he has a sin to confess, that he made everyone forget him, and that we'll find out why in the next issue. Alright then, so picking up from where the last issue left off, Matt Murdock is in confession. He's ready to finally spill the beans to someone about the lengths he had to go to make everyone in New York City, maybe everyone in the world, forget that he was Daredevil. To do this, Matt has to tell his new priest friend a big long story, even though this is technically not how confession works. I mean, I know I'm a couple years out of Catholic school, but I think I remember a little bit. To do this, writer Charles Soule essentially has to bridge the gap between the end of the Mark Waid series and the beginning of his own series, and I must say he does a pretty excellent job getting us back up to speed on everything that had been going on. If you'll recall, Daredevil was living with his girlfriend Kristen McDuffie in San Francisco. It was all going pretty great. He had officially come out as Daredevil, and he was actually getting accepted by everyone as a sort of local celebrity. He didn't even wear his costume to fight crime anymore. Instead, he had a slick red pimp suit that he did the job in. Now, as you might have guessed, being an out and proud superhero kind of impacted his job as a lawyer. Because of that, he had to quit. Not that he cared or anything. He made $8 million selling his story to an autobiography company. But in his more private moments in the dead of night, he truly did miss working as a lawyer. He loved being able to fight for justice on the other side of the law without having to put on a costume. And in fact, now that he's been living his life as Daredevil 24/7, he's beginning to fear that he's starting to get a little obsessive with no other side projects. He fears that if he's not careful, he might end up becoming someone like the Punisher, who the line has long ago disappeared between the superhero identity and the person. And hey, if you're wondering to yourself, wouldn't revealing his identity as Daredevil mean that his greatest villains would be able to find him at home? You would be totally correct in that assumption, because Typhoid Mary, Matt's occasional
on again, off again love interest with multiple personalities and fire powers, one night just kind of shows up in his bed. And while the man without fear is able to defeat the walking talking billboard for not putting one's dick in crazy easily enough, his house does not survive the fire. With nowhere else to go and most definitely being in need of a vacation, Christian and Matt decide to take a trip back to New York City, and he's not in town for more than a few seconds before he remembers how much he loves that place. Granted, things are a lot different now than they used to be. He's getting swamped by paparazzi absolutely everywhere he goes, and even the cops are treating him differently. We do, however, get to see Daredevil hit the streets again, once more in his classic red costume. I wonder if they're going to explain why he decided dressing in black, or if that's just a stylistic thing. Old Hornhead has himself a classic New York day, grabs a hot dog, a slice of pizza, beats up Tombstone, you know, the average. Only see, here's the thing, after defeating the gang, Lord Matt really wants to wet his feet back in the world of the law by helping out the courts take him down, only there's one huge problem with that. Being such a public celebrity and being a superhero means that if he did get involved, he would do a lot more harm than good. Then there's the matter of the fact that he's still technically disbarred in New York City after everything that went down with the Sons of the Serpent. Man, that was a hell of a story. The Sons of the Serpent, a bunch of evil supervillain white supremacists, you know, invading every aspect of law and order in a major city. Man, what fantasy that was. It's at this point Matt begins to wonder to himself, what if things could go back to the way they were? What if he could put the genie back in the bottle? He's not saying he's gonna do it or anything. Life is good with him and Christian right now, but what if he could? What if he just asked around a couple people, you know? Doctor Strange shoots him down, this technically being the second time Matt Murdock has asked the Sorcerer Supreme to make people forget he was Daredevil. He asked the Silver Surfer for help. How Daredevil got the number of the Silver Surfer is beyond me, but hey, that's cool. He asked Emma Frost, who refuses pretty much entirely on principle. Then there's Damien Hellstorm, aka the son of Satan, who says, well, he can't personally do it. He knows a guy who's done it once or twice before, you know? Daredevil ultimately decides that he has more self-respect than to make a deal with the literal devil, but when he returns home that night, he does, however, get a very mysterious knock at the door, and this is an amazing piece of writing right here, and a truly stellar use of continuity. If you don't want this spoiled for yourself, jump to the end of this video, because I really gotta talk about it. You see, Daredevil is actually met by the Purple Children, the illegitimate children of Zedediah Kilgrave, aka the Purple Man. Now, on their own, the children have a little bit of their father's power to influence people, but together, though, they're actually more powerful than their dad. They come to Matt's house because they know he's looking for a favor, one that they just so happen to owe him. Okay then, so as we join the comic, Matt gets us all up to speed on who the Purple Man is, in case, God forbid, this should be your very first Daredevil story and you don't know the weight or severity of the character. But hey, don't worry if you only know Zedediah Kilgrave from the Jessica Jones TV show, because he looks even more like David Tennant now than he ever did before. Seriously, look how Doctor Whoian he is now. Now, at the end of the original premiere Purple Children story from Mark Waid, Matt went out of his way to split the kids up so their evil father could never manipulate their power, or they themselves become corrupted by their own gifts. Those gifts, again, in case you forgot, is the power of suggestion via pheromones. Basically, if they say it, you have to do it, and the more Purple Children are together in the same room, the more powerful they become. It would seem, despite Daredevil's direct commands to do so, the kids actually stayed in contact with one another. I mean, you can't really blame them, they were family, and it's gotta be hard growing up purple, am I right? It would seem Papa Kilgrave is on to the kids again, and he's already managed to capture 3 of the 5, and now he sent an army of zombified people under his command to Daredevil's home to collect the other 2. Luckily, Daredevil is no idiot, especially now after getting attacked at home by Typhoid Mary in the previous issue. Because of that, he's gone out of his way to build a nice little panic room for Christian and the kids. What follows next is a really interesting, really compelling little action scene wherein Daredevil has to defeat all these zombified people without, you know, them killing themselves and him hurting them too bad. With the help of the remaining 2 Purple Children, Daredevil is able to track down Zedediah Kilgrave to where he's been hiding. Apparently, he's built himself a massive machine to siphon off the abilities from the other remaining children. This means his own powers to manipulate others have grown astronomically. Where before Kilgrave could only manipulate you if you were standing right in front of him and his control would wane the further away you got from him, now there's no telling how powerful he is. Geez, you know, with the Purple Children and a machine that size, you could, I don't know, maybe get an entire world to forget a certain superhero's secret identity? Just maybe, just throwing that one out there. As the comic winds down, our hero sadly learns all too well the villain's new reach as he himself comes under the control of the Purple Man and is forced to attack the children. Off the bat, they let it be known that this issue is a mind bender. You see, as we join the comic, Matt Murdock is drinking at Zed's bar, a representation of his own mind right now as the Purple Man attempts to weave his way inside Matt's psyche and take control of him. As we soon discover, Zedediah Kilgrave has changed his MO recently. The way he says it, having the power to make anyone do whatever you want, whenever you want, can get kind of boring. He's forced men, women, and children to commit the most heinous acts imaginable, so now he does things a little differently. Mainly, he asks Daredevil, what is the worst thing you could ever imagine yourself doing? Then go do it. Damn, that is heavy. Giving them the rope to hang themselves, that's just insidious. And from there, the rest of the issue is pretty much Daredevil arguing with different versions of himself inside his mind over what is the worst thing he could possibly do. This very unique and very outside the box set. It means we get to actually peek on in at versions of Daredevil we haven't seen in forever, like this version right here, the one that pipes up first, the black-clad jogging suit Frank Miller version. He says they need to be hardcore, which basically translates into saying Daredevil needs to kill a woman that he loves. This idea is hilariously checkmated by the slick suit-wearing Mark Waid version of the character, and of course these two would fight. They couldn't be more opposite of one another. Matt does end up scaring the crap out of Christian, but he doesn't kill her, saying, you know, I've lost loves before, and as painful as it is, it's not the worst thing I could do. Back in Matt's mind, more Daredevils begin to take the floor and say their 2 cents. There's the classic original yellow version of Daredevil, who in turn gets smacked down by the crappy armored 90s version of the character who says whatever he does, it has to be extreme. Yep, he's a character from the 90s, alright. Eventually, Matt decides to take the Purple Man out listening for things, explaining how his powers work, how he can hear everything down to the smallest detail. It's then he asks Kilgrave to crank up his machine all the way and have the city go nuts. Obviously, the Purple Man is taking a mountain of perverse glee in getting his most hated enemy to dance on strings for him like this, so much to the point he's not really grasping what Daredevil is having him do right now. Purple Man gets the city to go nuts, but then Daredevil just stands there, doing nothing, ramrod still. Back in his mind, we hear the realization of all the different versions of Daredevil from all the different eras and all the different writers speak in unison that the worst thing Daredevil could do is nothing at all. As you might have guessed, Purple Man is pretty ticked off that Matt more or less wasted his night, stalled him, and has now checkmated him by being such a good guy at heart. Daredevil ends up beating the Purple Man into unconsciousness so the police can take him away, but Matt will never be the same after this. He really did take an inner journey here and see the worst version of himself. He begins to wish he could just set the clock back and that everything could be like it used to. Luckily, the Purple children are nearby, hear this, and figure that maybe they can help him. Alright then, so continuing on from the previous issue, Matt Murdock was able to defeat the Purple Man, but at a great personal cost to himself. He was forced to do horrible things while under the control of the Purple Man, terrify the woman he loved, Christian, and even hold the city of New York hostage. Zedediah's Purple children see this and figure that maybe, just maybe, they could use their amazing powers to throw Daredevil a bone, use their father's machine to amplify their own powers, and make it so everyone would forget that Daredevil and Matt Murdock is the same person. They do this without asking Matt, by the way, and they end up doing a pretty good job of it. In fact, this issue even goes as far as to explain how people would be able to ignore a bunch of books and internet posts that had Matt Murdock's secret identity on it. The answer is, the Purple children just told them not to see it. It's all pretty shocking for Matt when he returns home to Christian and tries to explain everything that went down. Oh, she knows Daredevil saved her, but once again has no idea that Matt and Daredevil are 2 different people. Why old Hornhead even tries to get a little intimate with Christian only to get slapped for all of his trouble. Now, Matt's not exactly sure he loves things the way they are right now. He goes to Foggy next to try and reveal himself, and even his best friend had no idea. And learning that Matt is Daredevil this time around was like learning for the very first time. He was shocked, he was amazed, he was taken aback even. Which, you know, could very much explain why they're not exactly seeing eye to eye right now despite being such good friends. Now, when Matt attempts to try and find the Purple children again to see about perhaps undoing what they did, it's a no-go. The Purple children are long gone. Zedediah gets locked up, but here's the crazy thing. The brainwashing didn't work on him, which means he's actually one of the only people in the world who still knows that Matt Murdock is secretly Daredevil, which it would explain why in a previous arc it was Elektra who was sent to go kill Daredevil after Kilgrave got inside her mind. mind. And it's with all of that out of the way, Matt Murdock comes to one hell of a crossroads in his life. Does he go back to the way things always were, go back to being Daredevil, go back to beating up criminals uninhibited? Or does he attempt to salvage his life with the woman he loves and live happy for the rest of his days? It's a very tough decision. Matt Murdock has lived a tough life, and he knows the longer he stays with Christian, the more likely it is that she could probably get hurt. If he was to cut her off here and now, even though it would be cruel, even though it would make both of them sad in the long run, it might actually be the best thing for her, and that's ultimately what he chooses to do. This choice ends up bringing us full circle to the beginning of this arc when Matt Murdock went to his priest buddy to confess his sins, only for the priest to say, yeah, everything you told me wasn't exactly a sin. Oh sure, you have reason to be guilty, but you also have reason to be proud of what you've done too. It's not God's forgiveness you need to ask for, Matt, it's your own forgiveness you need to ask for, and of those around you. Matt will need no help with penance, though he's already working on that. You'll remember a couple arcs ago when Daredevil teamed up with Spider-Man that he had a quote-unquote plan to dismantle all crime in New York City. Well, he could only do that as a lawyer, and he could only do that if everyone forgot that he was moonlighting as a superhero, and now it seems that the chips have finally all fallen into place and he's ready to move ahead with this plan. And that plan is, well, we'll have to read next time to find out. Okay then, so as we join the comic, we see Daredevil is staking out a property run by a group of insane militants calling themselves The Clip. The Clip is led by D-list Daredevil villain Ammo. Oh man, and if you love people and things named after guns and gun stuff, you're gonna absolutely love this issue, I tell ya. Now this, as we discover, just isn't another night of crime fighting for Matt Murdock. It's actually quite important to him. It's the first night of him putting into action his plan to clean up crime in New York City. He managed to get the go-ahead from his boss at the district attorney's office, but this is going to be a very fragile sort of situation. For one, Daredevil can't actually get involved in the apprehension of the Clip, or else the whole thing's gonna get screwed up. Luckily, Daredevil has friends all over the place, and as such, he reaches out to his bulletproof buddy Luke Cage to help bust up the Clip's operation. It seems these survivalist nuts had a plot to blow up City Hall and a bunch of other buildings all around New York so the revolution could begin. What kind of revolution are they talking about? I don't know. They all dress like 80s punks and have names like Black Powder and Tracer. Using a bunch of experimental weapons, the group actually manages to give Luke Cage a run for his money. Luckily, he's not alone either because Echo is there. Now remember I said Daredevil can't actually lay a hand on these dudes or else they'll screw up his plan. It's a good thing then that Echo's power is that she can basically do any task she sees get done in front of her, and so Daredevil literally shadow boxes them into submission. Now they think the worst part is over, but we find out the actual C4 explosives used to attack the buildings have already managed to slip out in the back of a garbage truck, and as such our heroes need to give chase after it, following Daredevil's amazing nose. Yes, that's right, follow your nose to the flavors of C4. Toucan Sam would be so proud of Matt right about now. It's a very close call, but the heroes manage to stop the garbage truck just in the nick of time and apprehend the final member of the Clip, Slug. Yeah, this guy's on the ass of the pyramid for sure. With all the bad guys in custody in Phase 1 out of the way, it's time for Phase 2 of Daredevil's plan, but for that, he's going to have to take the stand himself in full costume as issue 21 ends. Now, as we pick up with 22, Matt Murdock goes on about how insane this idea is in theory. You see, there actually are laws written about superheroes taking the stand within the world of Marvel Comics. In fact, if you're interested, Scott from the NerdSync channel and myself did a video on just this topic once. The long and short of it, though, is that Daredevil is fed up as a superhero, leaving criminals for the cops to pick up in hopes that the justice system will do its part. He's tired of people falling through the cracks, and because of it, he wants to take a more active role in making sure the criminals he catches goes away. Now, I don't know how many people knew this, but before he became a comic writer, Charles Soule was actually a lawyer, and as such, there's a lot of great legal tidbits and precedents that serve as the underpinning of this issue. You see, the rival lawyer tries to argue that because Daredevil is in a costume, his classic red costume, by the way, Matt wanted to make a good impression, he could really be anybody under there and no one would know. This is why old Hornhead has to prove his powers by saying what the rival lawyer had for lunch or what a lady out in the waiting room is saying on her cell phone. Again, none of this is exactly bulletproof or anything, but the judge is a fan of justice and decides to rule that, hey, you know what, everyone in the courtroom knows who this person is, knows their work, and yeah, they're Daredevil, who, as far as the Marvel universe is concerned, is a person, and fit to stand as a witness. Of course, all this legal maneuvering and habeas corpus and all this other good law and order stuff is all ultimately a moot point because it's at that point the other members of the clique who managed to escape show up in the courtroom to try and bust Slug out. This means Daredevil is able to get involved, fight off the bad guys, and show beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is indeed the person who he says it is. And to make matters even more hilarious, the judge even gets in on it, throwing his hammer like he was frickin' Thor. And yeah, with that, the good guys win, the clique get put away, and it's due in no small part to Daredevil actually taking the stand in the way no hero before him really has, despite the fact that actually in multiple stories heroes have, but hey, let's forget that. Later that night, Matt's boss tells him what a huge game-changing maneuver this is and how this will have major ramifications throughout the city, but that's not always a good thing because once you've changed the rules, it's only a matter of time until people start breaking down your door. People like, oh, I don't know, maybe the Kingpin of crime, Wilson Fisk? Alright then, so as we join the comic, Wilson Fisk the Kingpin is enjoying some light cardio while also speaking to his new legal counsel. A creepy man who goes by the very apt name of Legal. Chances are you might not remember this character if you didn't read Charles Soule's very underrated She-Hulk run. More or less this dude's origin was he was the entire legal department for Stark Industries, battled Jen Walters in the courtroom, but was ultimately defeated. Now Kingpin wants to hire him to kill this new initiative that Matt Murdock is trying to push through that would allow costume superheroes to actually stand trial as witnesses, without even having to reveal their identities or nothing, and he's ready to spare no expense in making sure this doesn't affect his day-to-day operations. Now Legal loves a challenge and is more than happy to battle this out in the courtroom, but Wesley, Kingpin's number 2 man, is already readying a backup plan, namely hiring Tombstone to go kill Matt Murdock. Well geez, if you're already readying a plan B, you must not be all that confident about plan A, am I right? From there we transition on over to Matt Murdock, who is visiting his favorite lawyer bar so he can have a one-on-one conversation with Jen Walters, also known as She-Hulk. As with most times in this book Matt Murdock meets a superhero, it gets a little bit more awkward because he knows who they are and all their secrets, but they don't know who he is. Matt's also super freaked out to see Jen not as She-Hulk, but as her regular everyday human self. For more information on that, read her solo ongoing right now, which is quite good. As a superhero and law professional, Jen is pretty interested in what Matt is laying down right here, right now. It's revolutionary. It could change the face of crime fighting in New York City. No longer would heroes have to drop villains off at police stations and hope that the justice system will do the job. Of course, Jen also wonders why Matt wouldn't take a big legal breakthrough like this to his best friend, Foggy Nelson. After all, hasn't Foggy had probably the most interaction with Daredevil than anyone? It's a very sore subject, as the breakup between Matt and Foggy has been one of the bigger focal points of the Charles Soule era on Daredevil. Luckily, our hero doesn't have to think about it for too long, as it's at that point Tombstone shows up with murder on his mind. Matt gets himself chucked through a window, and because this is a lawyer bar, we all know no one's gonna be a hero there. So essentially, Daredevil has a couple very hard things he has to do right now. One, he has to keep making it seem like he's a blind man. 2, he doesn't want to out his identity to anyone else, especially not She-Hulk. And, you know, also not get murdered, because that could really jeopardize the trial if he was dead. It's here too, for the first time, Matt ends up seeing She-Hulk's terrifying new Grey Hulk form. Again, if you want more information on that, go check out her solo book, but essentially she's stronger, more bestial, and less intelligent than regular She-Hulk. This leads to a truly ironic moment wherein Daredevil must actually protect Tombstone, the man who not a moment ago tried to kill him, from getting killed by his friend She-Hulk. The good guys are able to run off Tombstone, but the fight is long from over. Matt now knows that if someone is gunning for him, it's because they feel threatened with what he's attempting to do in court, and it's only going to get a lot harder from here on out. Alrighty then, so picking up from where the last issue left off, we see the fate of Matt Murdock's last court case. As you'll remember, he's trying a radical new strategy to try and combat crime in New York City, mainly allow heroes to stand trial and give evidence. Now, at a state court level, it came close, but ultimately he failed, due in no small part that the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, was desperately trying to kill the new initiative by hiring Legal, an incredibly creepy and off-putting individual who used to work for Tony Stark's company until She-Hulk defeated him. Legal is ready to leave now that his work is done, but it seems that he doesn't quite understand what sort of man Wilson Fisk the Kingpin is, and that's when you're in all the way for life. And hilariously, it seems like the Kingpin equally doesn't know who he's dealing with in Legal. He's actually quite put off by his strange otherworldly nature, saying that the law is neither good nor evil, it is an instrument to be played, and that he and Matt Murdock are virtuosos. Now, even though Matt's new initiative hit a bit of a
snag, he's not ready to stop just yet. He's ready to take this thing to the highest court in the land, but that's going to be one a hell of a case. One that he knows full well he's not going to be able to tackle on his lonesome, and because he unfortunately doesn't have many friends left at all anymore, he decides to look up an old face, and that would be Foggy Nelson, who, hey, wouldn't you know it, he's drinking at the exact same bar from the Daredevil Netflix show. Foggy is none too happy to see Matt. They left on not great terms. He talks about how much better his life has gotten now that he doesn't have Daredevil in it, now that villains aren't taking pot shots at him, and now that he doesn't have all the stress that comes with a friendship with Matt Murdock. Matt tries to appeal to his old friend about all the good times they had, all the cases they won, how they could make a real impact in New York City if only they could work together, and that he's matured a bit in the time apart from his friend. That he truly realizes that Daredevil's greatest villain is not the Kingpin, not the Hand, not anyone, it's only himself. And hey, speaking of villains, it's at this time too Tombstone shows up once again to try and kill Matt. He's smart enough this time to actually bring some goons along. Once again, Matt needs to save himself, protect the bar full of people, and also protect his secret identity as Daredevil, thankfully creating a small fire and using the smoke and pool cubes to his advantage serves him quite well. With the day saved and the bad guy properly vanquished, it's time again for Matt Murdock to turn on that trademark charm to tell his friend how sorry he is, how he can't go it alone, and how he promises this time things will be different, and oh, Foggy just can't help but take this man back into his life, can't he? Especially when there's not a potentially history-making legal battle to be fought. Then, so as the comic opens, we see Foggy and Matt are ready to bring their case to the Supreme Court. This will be the biggest case in their entire career, the biggest case of any lawyer's career, taking it to the highest court in the land. It's also around this point Matt lets it leak out that maybe, just maybe, he purposely lost one of those cases in the lower court so they could bring it here today with Foggy's help, because really, once something gets approved by the Supreme Court, it's law, it's ironclad. But because that's just how much Matt Murdock believes in what he's trying to do right now, trying to make it so superheroes can have some say in the legal proceedings and the dispensing of justice. Of course, this is going to be one hell of an uphill battle, and one on two fronts no less. On one, Kingpin has hired Tombstone to try and kill Matt Murdock. He's failed twice already, but now he's ready to bring out the big guns, quite literally, as he gets prepared with a rocket launcher. But no, the real foe that Matt is going to have to overcome is Legal, the strange little man that Wilson Fisk has hired to kill this case once and for all. We get treated to an excellent speech from Legal this issue. He talks about how lawyers might as well be magicians. They speak a secret language that only they can understand. How justice is ultimately an illusion and a farce, and the reason so many guilty people go free every day depends on the strength of their lawyer, and he believes he's the strongest lawyer there is. So yeah, the entire story has been building up to one giant court case wherein Matt Murdock will try and bring his case before the Chief Justices of the Supreme Court. How can they make this interesting in a comic? Well, Charles Soule and his art team do something rather interesting and stylistic. You see, while all the ultra-dry Lego mumbo-jumbo gets spouted back and forth, what we get treated to is a super over-the-top lawyer fight, like kung fu fight. And because all the people in this comic are based on the real actual Supreme Court justices, we actually get to see people like Ruth Bader Ginsburg doing frickin' crane kicks. It's awesome. The justices argue that despite all the good work the superhero community does, at the end of the day, they're still ultimately vigilantes, and the government and the legal system can't be seen to encourage their behavior for good or ill. Matt fires back by saying that all he really wants is for the superhero community to be giving the same protection that anonymous witnesses be given. Legal fires back with a lot of well-tuned points about how can you provide confidentiality for people who are taking part in crimes themselves in order to stop crime, but none of that ultimately really matters because this issue is structured like a really good episode of Law & Order, and the only thing that really matters is the ruling at the end, and hey, Matt and Foggy totally win. On the news, they talk about how this is a huge breakthrough for the American legal system and the country as a whole, and there's no telling how this new law will be implemented. I think that's kind of Charles Soule saying there's no telling how other writers will run with this if they do. As you might have guessed, Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, is royally pissed about this. He's going to have to work overtime now to protect his illegal dealings from the new laws. He's also double pissed at Tombstone, who refused to take the shot at Matt Murdock. Yeah, believe it or not, old Lonnie Lincoln is actually smarter than anyone gives him credit for. He saw the writing on the wall and opted not to be Fisk's errand boy. It seems that now him and Wesley are going to have to get to work on Plan C. What's Plan C? Oh, run for mayor, of course. Want to see more of that? Check back for Daredevil Legacy. And hey, while we're on the subject of Daredevil and Legacy, Matt Murdock is so happy about what transpired at the Supreme Court that he figures it's time for a little change in his life. It's time
time to go back to an old friend. Yep, that's right, the red suit. And as the comic winds down, Matt Murdock says as Daredevil he might be able to save the world, but as Matt Murdock, as a lawyer, he can actually fix the world. Alrighty then, so as we join the comic, Daredevil is still riding high in light of recent victories. He's passed a brand new law through the Supreme Court, he's back with Foggy Nelson, back wearing his classic red suit, but because Old Hornhead's life is nothing if not a horrifying roller coaster of emotion, a wrench is about to be thrown into his happiness machine. You'll remember when this arc started, Daredevil had taken on a new apprentice by the name of Blindspot, Sam Chung. Daredevil was trying to teach him much in the same way Stick taught him back in the day, but you know, a lot less surly and a lot less Scott Glenny. Poor Sam was an undocumented worker who tried really hard to defend the people of Chinatown, and in the end it cost him the use of his eyes after a supervillain called Muse scooped them out of his head. Sam's cultist mother would end up scooping him up and taking him back to China. Now Daredevil has received a coded letter from Sam saying that he's in trouble and only Daredevil can bail him out of it. This means it's time for an international trip, so Matt will need to make an excuse at work so he can take an Asian vacation to go save his buddy. This is actually Matt's second time in China, only the first time he was there under an assumed name. He figures though that maybe his lawyer powers will come in handy this time. What follows is an oh-so-classic Daredevil setup. We see how the Guardian Devil will fare when out of his New York element and put against some crazy exotic backdrop, in this case the crazy jungles of China. Now of course, because this is a story about Daredevil in Asia, you just know the Han Ninja Clan are involved, and it seems their leader is some sort of horrifying Jabba the Hutt looking dude. We get treated to a pretty awesome action scene wherein Daredevil tries to stalk his way up to an ancient temple only to have himself be snuck up on by a bunch of undead ninjas who don't have heartbeats and as such don't make noise. It's a hard-fought battle in keeping with the Kung Fu movie theme. A mysterious man in black watches the fight and refuses to move until the very end after Daredevil is exhausted. This mysterious individual will end up removing their mask, revealing it to be none other than Sam with a new set of creepy blue eyes, so either he's under the hand control or he's become some manner of White Walker. So, picking up from where the last issue left off, Matt Murdock had come all the way to the jungles of China only to be captured by the Hand. They're currently keeping him prisoner at the bottom of a well. Every day, Blindspot, Sam Chung, comes to talk with his mentor, Daredevil. He says despite all the time they had worked together, he never actually did tell Daredevil his true origin story. And yeah, that's basically what the backbone of this issue is. We find out that Sam was born in a very poor rural village in China, but his mother always wanted more for them. She always imagined a life elsewhere. That's why she was willing to abandon everything she had and move her small family to the city. The move meant Sam could actually go to school for the first time, and his mother picked a doozy of a place to go and send him, the famous Peking Opera School. You may have heard of that as the place that spawned such great martial arts actors as Jackie Chan and Jet Li. Of course, if you know anything about the Peking Opera School, you'll also know that the place was basically one giant child abuse factory where they worked the kids like dogs to break them down so they could build them back up again. Sam ended up being no different. He picked up the acrobatics pretty easily. That's why years later in his life, when it came time to fight crime, he was something of a natural. Things were going pretty good at this time, but once again, Sam's mother got a bad case of the itchy feet, this time wanting to move them to America, and as such, she used every penny she had to hire a snakehead. From there, we all pretty much know the story. Poor penniless immigrant comes to America with a dream, has to work twice as hard as anyone else to try and achieve it, while also desperately trying to make sure no one discovers they're illegal. This led to much friction between Sam and his sister, who was born in the country and as such was an actual citizen in the eyes of the law. Sam found a great outlet building his invisibility suit and helping Daredevil fight crime. Unfortunately, once again, his mother upset his entire life when she fell in with the Tenfingers cult. Luckily, with Daredevil's help, Blindspot was able to defeat the Tenfingers cult, but as we all recall, it wasn't long after that the supervillain Muse would cost Blindspot his very eyes. It's right around here, though, Sam was surprised his mother did opt to actually do something for him, taking him out of the hospital and deep into Hand territory so she could sell her soul to the Fist, a grotesque Jabba the Hutt-looking avatar of the Beast, the Hand's god. Now, Daredevil, as we discover, ends up actually being down in this well for months. He figures that the reason Sam keeps coming to talk to him is that he needs help but can't say anything lest the Hand get wise to what's going on. And we know this because Matt has grown one hell of a sick hobo hobo beard, one night Blindspot helps Daredevil escape into the woods, but he's quickly grabbed by the hand ninjas and dragged back. And you see, here's the thing, Mama-san had sold her soul to the Fist so that her son could see again, but now Sam is ready to sell Matt's soul in exchange for his mother's. And the only reason he dragged it out for all these weeks and months is for one simple purpose, and that is the beast loves the extra taste of desperation on its victims.
So, picking up from where the last issue left off, Matt Murdock has just been told by his seemingly turncoat former sidekick that his soul has just been sold to the Beast, the evil, demonic entity that is worshipped by the Han Ninja Clan, eternal rivals of Daredevil. Now, what does that actually mean, having your soul sold to a demon? Well, nothing good, as we discover. Daredevil is killed pretty much instantly, but because this is the Han, and bringing people back from the dead is kind of their bread and butter, they bring Daredevil back to life. Then they kill him again. And again, and again. Blindspot and his mother are already halfway out of Dodge when they start hearing Matt's screams. It's right around here Sam has a change of heart. You'll recall from learning his origin in the last issue, all Sam ever wanted to do was to get closer to his mother, and in a weird way this whole selling their soul business to evil ninjas got them closer. Only now Mommy Not So Dearest is telling Blindspot to look out for number 1 and leave Matt Murdock behind, despite everything he did for and admittedly to him. It's right around here Sam eventually comes to the realization that he is, in his heart of hearts, a good person, and if he leaves Matt behind, yet another good person, then he'll be no different than his mother, who is understandably a pretty bad person. Blindspot bravely wades into enemy territory and fights off the hand ninjas, knowing full well that going against the Beast and the Hand could very well mean losing his new magical eyesight. Oh, but the Hand are nothing if not creative in their sadism. You see, they don't actually punish Daredevil or Blindspot, quite the opposite. The Beast chooses to eat Sam's mother whole right in front of him. And then they just kind of disappear into the ether like they were never there. The idea being, as Daredevil explains later, is that the Hand wants Sam to be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life. Maybe they'll seek revenge tomorrow, maybe they'll seek it 10 years from now, but they will be coming for him now. Daredevil wants Sam to return to New York with him, but Blindspot isn't exactly 100% sure. Will he ever truly be accepted in New York, both as a superhero and as an undocumented immigrant? What's the point of being truly exceptional, truly intelligent, if the country won't even recognize him? Matt says it's for all those reasons and more that the country absolutely needs him and he should absolutely come back for New York, and then he leverages a bunch of his government contacts to try and get Sam asylum. Now, believe it or not, this has been a couple months now since Daredevil has been in Asia. What's changed in New York since Matt's been gone? Oh, you know, nothing big. Just Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, became mayor of New York. Oh, that's a pretty big change. Alrighty then, so this is the first legacy title for Daredevil. Not only did they return to old school numbering, but they also catch you up on who the Kingpin is and what his basic deal is in case, God forbid, this is your first ever Daredevil comic. Matt Murdock is overall pretty blindsided by this recent turn of events. He had been dealing with Blindspot in Asia only to return home and see one of his greatest foes elected mayor. Foggy tries to explain what went down. Fisk waited till the absolute last second to actually register as a candidate. He ran on a platform that was basically best described as New York first, screw everyone else, used his own harsh upbringing in the city to garner support, as well as capitalizing on the success of his brand new memoir that was written in the pages of the Kingpin miniseries from earlier this year, as well as cashing in a bunch of favors he accumulated during the Secret Empire. Now, our hero doesn't believe for a damn second that Wilson Fisk, given his criminal past, could do something like this and run legitimately. He had to have stolen the election somehow, and it's only a matter of time until he finds out. I bet you it was the dastardly work of Crimson Dynamo, Omega Red, or possibly Emil Blonsky. The hits just keep on coming for poor Matt Murdock too. At work, his boss at the district attorney's office tell them that because, well, they're essentially part of the arm of the local government, they work for Fisk now too. And right now, one of the mayor's election promises was to crack down on super vigilantism in the city, even though Daredevil worked really hard to make it so costume crime fighters could stand trial, and helped give testimony and evidence for the bad guys that they catch, only Fisk can't have any of that, and because of it, he's put Daredevil in one hell of a position. He can either keep his job, even though that would mean being forced to hunt down and prosecute, well, himself and all of his friends in the superhero community, or he could quit, even though doing so would send a hell of a message, and Fisk is already pretty suspicious that there's a connection between Matt Murdock and Daredevil. Old Hornhead decides to put all of this aside for a second and go clear his head by beating up some criminals, you know, classic superhero stuff. Only the punks he chooses to roust turn out to not actually be street punks at all. They're actually undercover NYPD doing a major Daredevil sting that he walked directly into. Once again, Daredevil finds himself in a real no-win scenario right here. Does he fight these otherwise good cops who are just doing their job, even if that job now entails doing the bidding of Kingpin? Or does he run and end up looking super guilty? Eventually, our hero is forced to acquiesce and he's brought to Kingpin's new digs. Apparently, the duties of the mayor still haven't stopped Fisk from running his other side operation as he holds court with Hammerhead right where everyone can see. Kingpin takes this opportunity to gloat and rub his newest victory in his arch nemesis's face, saying that he won and he did it legitimately. That while people like Daredevil and the other superheroes appoint themselves saviors of mankind, saviors of New York, Fisk was chosen by the people themselves, and that to go to war with him right now would mean going to war with all of New York. Daredevil doesn't like any of this, but by breaking the mayor's window and escaping, he lets it be known that he's willing to fight Mayor Fisk that much harder and that much smarter from here on out. So, picking up from where the last issue left off, Daredevil just narrowly managed to survive his run-in with the new Kingpin of crime turned mayor of New York City. In retaliation, Fisk has gone out of his way to make Daredevil public enemy number 1. This means a level 4 bulletin has gone out to all the different precincts in the NYPD. Daredevil is now the most wanted metahuman in the city, and if any cops see him, well, they should just shoot him on sight. Now, understandably, the boys in blue are a little conflicted on this. They know Daredevil is one of the good guys, or at least as far as they know, Daredevil is one of the good guys. I guess when Matt Murdock was messing with everyone's mind, he also managed to delete that time he took over the city with evil ninjas, but hey, that's neither here nor there. What we do know is the cops say that an attack on the mayor is an attack on the city itself, and as such, all the police need to pull together to track down this dangerous radical at any cost, and as such, a giant citywide chase begins to take place. The cops aren't messing around either. It seems a level 4 alert also means they're allowed to use specialty weapons for dealing with metahumans, including sonic cannons. Now, for any old average Joe eluding justice, this would be bad, but for a hero who's built around his enhanced senses, including hearing, this super sucks. Daredevil just narrowly manages to activate a sound dampener in his helmet. That makes sense. I guess you would want to have one of those, wouldn't you, if you had super sensitive hearing, and slip away from the cops. New York is big, but you can only hide for so long. For something like this, Daredevil would, well, have to get invisible. It's good, though, that, well, he can do that too now, because get this, the guy we've been following in the Daredevil suit this whole time hasn't actually been Matt Murdock. It's been Sam Chung, Blindspot, who slipped into the uniform for him, you know, much like Iron Fist did in the past when Daredevil got in trouble. This is all getting real serious right now. Sam can't be caught, especially because he's still hoping for Matt to push through paperwork to get him political asylum, and now that his alter ego Daredevil has become a pariah, yeah, that's probably not gonna happen, which is making Sam wonder why he should stick his neck out like this. That's pretty bad, but you know what's worse? Muse, the Inhuman serial killer who cost Sam his eyes in the first place, he's watching the news and it seems like he actually recognizes Sam in the suit. It's because of that he hopes to slip his bonds, escape the human prison, and go pay Blindspot and Daredevil another brutal, gory visit. Yeah, it seems like poor Matt Murdock can't catch a break right now. Worse still, the law firm he works for is the one that's supposed to be working on the Daredevil indictment for the city, so you know he's trying to slow that down as much as humanly possible without getting fired. But hey, being a good Catholic boy, I'm sure Matt knows the expression, God doesn't close a door without opening a window, and oh boy, what a strange window is open when Matt gets a call from Mayor Kingpin. You see, Fisk is looking to repair his image. Everyone knows he won under rather dubious circumstances, but he still thinks he can get the average Joe on his side if he picks the right deputy mayor, someone who has been known to challenge him in the past, and that person is, yep, you guessed it, Matt Murdock, which he agrees to this new job as the comic ends.
So, as we join the comic, Matt Murdock is being sworn in as Mayor Wilson Fisk's deputy mayor. Kingpin hopes that hiring someone who has so vocally been against him in the past will help him win some points with New Yorkers. Everyone who knows Matt, including those in the superhero community who are still not entirely sure about his double life as Daredevil, on the other hand, think Matt has lost his frickin' mind. Now, Wilson Fisk isn't an idiot. He's not going to hire someone who will actively be attempting to undermine him, and so to keep Matt Murdock busy, he decides to bury him under a mountain of paperwork, red tape, and bureaucracy. This is also a pretty good time to mention that a deputy mayor doesn't have near the power you might think they do. For one, if the actual mayor can't perform his duties, the deputy mayor doesn't get promoted. They are essentially nothing more than a figurehead, but as Matt tells Foggy later, with Fisk putting so much pressure on the DA's office, it was only a matter of time before he needed to look for new work anyway. This way, though, our hero can remain in the belly of the beast, with his super ears always open for what Fisk might be planning to do next. But hey, you know, that's the day job taken care of. What about Daredevil's night job? Well, that gets a little bit more complicated. He's still public enemy #1 with the cops, and worse still, Fisk has put a giant bounty out on his head. This means when old Hornhead stops two dudes from knocking over a bodega, he gets a shotgun in his face from the bodega owner looking to claim that sweet, sweet reward money. And the bodega owner would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for that meddling Frank McGee, the Inhuman head of Attilan security, and a guy who's helped out Daredevil once or twice before. Frank manages to save our hero, but unfortunately he comes packing some very unfortunate news, and that is that Muse, the Inhuman serial killer that the Royals were keeping captive, well, he's escaped now, and he still has a very violent bone to pick with both Daredevil and his sidekick. And as the comic winds down, we see Muse is going to be a problem for Daredevil much sooner than later. Alrighty then, so ever since his escape, Muse, the Inhuman serial killer with a flair for the artistic, has been going on a spree. Not a killing spree, though, a graffiti spree. He's been creating building-sized wonderful pop art pieces dedicated to the street-level heroes, like the ones who are in direct opposition to Mayor Fisk right now. No one knows how he's doing it so quick or how they can't scrub them off the walls. Needless to say, the mayor is pretty damn pissed, especially at a time when he's trying to demonize the superhero community. Here comes an artist turning them into folk heroes again. Daredevil desperately wants to go out there and join the hunt for Muse, but he can't. His job as deputy mayor is keeping him tied up in as much red tape and paperwork as he can possibly imagine, all Fisk doing, of course. Why, Matt Murdock even takes quite the risk and threatens showing his hand by telling Fisk he doesn't know what he's dealing with in Muse, that this guy is incredibly dangerous, and that if the mayor wanted, Murdock could totally reach out to his friends in the superhero community. Remember, Kingpin at this time, like everyone else, has had his memories messed with, so while he does not believe Matt Murdock is Daredevil, he is getting pretty suspicious about his connections. Now, earlier in the issue, Daredevil had managed to slip a tracker onto Wesley, Kingpin's #2 man, and decides later that night to go follow him around and see where he goes. And wait, why is Daredevil back in the black costume? At first I just thought it was an artistic choice to show off shadows, but nope, in the next panel he's wearing the black suit. Did the artist not get the memo, or is he really back wearing it now? Is this some sort of stealth thing, like he's hoping that the cops won't notice him if he's wearing a black suit or something? Like the big DD on his chest is not a huge giveaway of who he is? Well, that's all besides the point, I guess. What's Wesley up to? Well, he's going around to all the biggest gang lords in New York. Hammerhead, who is still alive, despite being dead in the pages of the Defenders. Black Cat, who is still evil in this, despite having gone good in a newer issue of Spider-Man. As well as Diamondback and the Owl to offer them, get this, new cabinet positions in the Fisk administration. Yeah, that's right. In Fisk's New York, supervillains are going to be running the education, the sanitation, and oh so much more. Oh sure, they may be evil, they may have criminal records as long as my arm, but they're political outsiders. We should hear what they have to say. Now that's all pretty horrifying, but what about the on-the-loose serial killer Muse? As we check in with him, he's actually finishing up his next piece, a loving rendition of The Punisher. A group of passers-by, clearly not understanding what they're dealing with in Muse, want to try and grab a picture of him, thinking that he's the next Banksy or Mark Echo. All too quickly though, Muse flips his freak switch and
and reminds us, oh yeah, he's pretty dangerous. Then a bunch of cops show up to try and apprehend him, and they all end up dead. Moreover than that, they end up part of his twisted mural, which he agrees makes it a much better piece overall, and that's where the comic ends. Alrighty then, so as we join the comic, Daredevil is meditating so he can become one with the Force. I mean, so he can concentrate his super senses to hunt down Muse. This is a lot easier said than done, because after those 6 cops were killed by Muse in the previous issue, the entire city is buzzing about the guy right now. Kingpin, of course, jumped on the opportunity to direct all of the public's anger towards anti-superhero sentiment, saying, well, obviously the Punisher killed those people. No, I don't have any proof, but why would I need any proof? I'm the mayor, I said a scary thing, now let me protect you from the scary thing I just made up. Complicating things even further is Sam, Matt Murdock's on-again, off-again sidekick. He wants to rush out and get revenge on Muse right away. Keep in mind, he was the dude who stole his eyesight previously. Daredevil, however, thinks Kingpin ruling over New York City like a tyrant is still the most pressing thing at the moment, which is why he's going to try and devote as much attention to it as he can. You see, Daredevil still very much thinks that in the guise of Matt Murdock, the deputy mayor of New York City, he can get Mayor Kingpin to see some sense. Maybe call off his superhero witch hunt long enough so that the cops and superheroes can swap notes and maybe track down this dangerous killer once and for all. Of course, like most politicians, Fisk is in no hurry to do anything about Muse, and why shouldn't he? The superpowered serial killer is offering excellent cover for his administration. After all, the longer he's on the streets, the more seeds of fear that he can sow, and don't you know people are oh so easy to manipulate when they're afraid. Fisk also gives Murdoch an ultimatum. He's tired of all this pushback he's getting. He can quit if he wants, but if he does, Fisk will do everything in his power to make sure he never gets a file clerk job in New York. So basically, bad guy mayor tells our heroes to smile, go to a big rally at Central Park later that night to represent the mayor's office, and shut the hell up. Now elsewhere, Blindspot is reunited with his sister. Man, it's been forever since this character has shown up, and he has a lot to talk about. Oh yeah, mom's still in China. Oh yeah, I lost my eyes but got them back thanks to demon magic, and oh yeah, I killed some people. But don't worry, I've taken a bunch of paint devices and I'm deciding to meet a serial killer head-on who blinded me in the first place without any backup, but just another night that ends in Y when you're a New York City superhero. The funny thing is that Blindspot goes out of his way to cover up Muse's artwork when Fisk was trying to get that done himself anyway. Now as the comic winds down, we think Daredevil actually shows up at the Central Park meeting, but instead he manages to get together a group of all of Marvel's street-level heroes to come up with a plan to take down Fisk once and for all. Alright, so at the end of the last issue, Daredevil had managed to gather together all of New York's finest street-level heroes and then some. They're all currently feeling the pinch from Mayor Fisk, but Daredevil has a plan. He says with the help of Matt Murdock, he thinks that working together they can all take him down. Also, a fun and important fact for later, a mayor can't actually be impeached. You need the governor to step in and do something about that. What exactly is Old Hornhead's plan? Well, it seems that Fisk is having a big rally tonight with all of his political supporters, but first he's going to meet with the heads of all of New York's biggest gangs to help carve up the city. The hope for the heroes is that if they can catch the Kingpin doing something evil or illegal, then with the help of Murdoch's Law, yes, that's what they called it, they can actually go to court and testify against him for his wrongdoing. Now, at the other end of the issue, Blindspot is still dealing with Muse, the guy who cost him his eyesight and is now threatening to cost him his life. Muse is a lot more powerful than poor Sam, and worse still, with the heroes off fighting their own battle, nobody is coming to help Blindspot right now. He's all on his own. Muse opines that at the end of the day, he actually quite loves the superheroes, their colorful costumes, their pageantry, the way they fly through the night. It's a work of art in its own right, really, a performance art. He then considers gouging out Blindspot's eyes again, but figures, a good artist shouldn't repeat himself. He should try and find something new to hack off this time, and he would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for Blindspot tapping on into that demon fist energy. You'll recall that the Han Ninja Clan gave Sam his eyesight back, but only on the condition that he would be their champion. He kinda squelched on the deal, and now it seems that in his time of need he's gonna have to tap into that power if he wants to live.
Too bad for him though, the power comes at a terrible cost. Blood for blood and all that good stuff. And as we saw with Tenfingers early on, if you don't pay your ninja debt, they send the hand to come and collect. Now, the heroes have the bad guys all staked out, but they don't want to give away their position or run in too quickly. Fisk is running very late right now, which has all the gang lords on edge. And hey, when you put that many bad people with that many guns all in one room for too long, you're just asking for trouble. It's only a matter of time before they start floating the idea of, hey, why are we waiting for Fisk to give us the scraps that he decides we should have? Why don't we all work together and expose him or take him over, or heck, let's just fight each other. This means Daredevil and the other heroes are forced to get involved. They can't really set a trap if their bait ends up killing each other, can they? This also means we get to see Soule write a bunch of the different heroes. I gotta say, I really like his take on Spider-Man, very funny. All this racket ends up alerting the cops who come to arrest the bad guys, and also some of the heroes too. It's left open-ended whether or not this was part of Daredevil's plan or if this was an unseen complication. Kingpin though is absolutely over the moon over this turn of events. Not only did all of his competition just get locked up so he doesn't have to worry about them anymore, but now he can say to all of his supporters how tough he is on vigilantism in New York City and how he was able to make a bunch of big arrests. Before he can give his speech, though, Daredevil does what he probably should have done in the beginning and confronts him. As you might guess, though, this isn't going to be a cut-and-dry kind of fight. Daredevil just can't punch him. He is still the mayor, after all, running on an anti-superhero ticket, and this would give him the smoking gun. Fisk realizes this too, and in fact, he tries to hit himself in the head with a sledgehammer just so he can blame it on Daredevil later. Now that is commitment. In the end, Daredevil gets hauled off by the cops, not entirely sure what he was hoping to accomplish by confronting Fisk here and now. Fisk takes the stage and begins to gloat about all his good works and how he will do what no superhero has managed to do, and that is actively save New York. That is, of course, before he gets hit with a rain of ninja arrows. Yes, the hand has come to New York, and they're not exactly being stealthy about it. Matt, rightly so, jumps to the conclusion that this newest hand attack must have something to do with what him and Blindspot have been doing to their organization. With the mayor incapacitated and possibly dead, the question then becomes, who is gonna run New York City now? There is a normal chain of succession, but Fisk was no normal mayor. In fact, he was monkeying around with the laws almost as soon as he got voted in to try and give himself extra terms and stuff. What's one of the other things he changed? Oh, you know, if the mayor is somehow incapacitated, the job will then fall to the assistant mayor, which now officially means that Matt Murdock is mayor of New York. Now, if only he wasn't arrested in a Daredevil costume. Alright, so in the previous issue, Daredevil had been arrested along with a bunch of New York's other major superheroes. He also found out that Matt Murdock just became the next in line to be mayor of New York, and with Fisk slowly bleeding out, Matt's gonna need to step up to the plate sooner rather than later. Now, the cuffs he's currently in are meant for powerful metahumans. He can't slip them on his own, but luckily the help of a little ninja steel gets the job done. Of course, our hero can't help but shake the feeling that this ninja attack and everything else that's going on right now is pretty much 100% his fault, and now he needs to work overtime to get everyone out of this. Luckily, when push comes to shove, Matt Murdock proves that he actually has quite the mind to be a mayor. He gets all the heads of the major city departments in order, chief of police, etc., warns them about the danger of the hand, as only he can do from years of experience, and tells the first responders that they should concentrate more on actually protecting people than fighting these undead ninjas, because, well, that ain't just gonna fly. Of course, he has his detractors. Wesley, as ever, is 100% loyal to his sugar daddy Fisk and tries to do everything he can to undercut Matthew, taking the big chair and the big job for himself. Luckily, as we soon discover, one of the fringe benefits of being mayor is you can pretty much fire whoever you want, and Wesley is the first to get the axe. And speaking of use of mayoral power, Matt manages to pull some strings to get all his superhero buddies who were arrested in the previous issue sprung from the pokey, and not a moment too soon either, as they're gonna need all hands on deck to deal with the hand who are attacking anyone wearing a uniform right now. It's also pretty good that this order came down from Matt when it did, because the hero community was beginning to wonder if Daredevil and Matt had led them into some sort of trap at the Kingpin's behest. Though a lot of them are still unsure what the Murdoch era of mayoring in New York City is gonna look like in the near future. Now, word of Matt Murdock's ascension to the mayor's office reaches the ears of the Hand and their leader, the demonic Fist of the Hand. The ninjas have been trying their hardest to destabilize the power structure and change of command in New York City. Now
now their job just got a whole lot more interesting. There's a new guy in charge, they know him, they hate him, and now they're ready to go in all guns blazing after him, or whatever the ninja equivalent of a gun is, katana blazing, shuriken blazing. Okay then, so as we join the comic, we check on in with Foggy Nelson. He's getting caught up on the current hand situation. Ninjas are attacking all the important infrastructure in New York right now, and he just knows his friend Matt is at the center of it. Foggy then gets a call from Matt saying, "Oh hey old buddy, old pal, how would you like to upgrade to a new profession? I'm thinking chief of staff for you." Matt is truly going to need as many hands on deck as he possibly can with this one, as he's quickly learning being the mayor is rough at the best of times, let alone during a state of emergency when all of New York is getting assailed by ninjas. Matt also slowly but surely begins to find out what the limitations of his power are. He can close the schools, which will make him a hero to children everywhere. He can shut down transit, which might make New Yorkers angry, but here's the crazy thing, he can't actually declare a state of emergency or call in the National Guard until he gets the okay from the governor, which usually takes about 5 days. It should come as no surprise, though, that what Matt really wants to do, what he's truly drawn to do, is to go out there in the streets and fight the good fight as Daredevil, even though as Foggy in his new role says, "Hey, you know what, Matt, you can actually delegate tasks here. Believe it or not, you're not the only hero in the Marvel universe who's trying to stop this threat." And hey, wouldn't you know it, for once, the hand attacking New York City actually had nothing to do with Matt Murdock or Daredevil at all. They're here for Blindspot. Sam had made a Faustian bargain with the Beast, the Hand's patron saint, to try and defeat Muse. He managed to do so, but when he refused to take Muse's life, that ticked the Beast off, and now they're here to collect his soul. Yeah, he surely is Daredevil's apprentice, is he not? Foggy is able to stall for time and allow the two heroes to get out on the street. They save 2 cops who are under assault by ninjas, before eventually dealing with the main threat. It seems that a bunch of hand soldiers have all converged on the NYPD headquarters. Oh no, someone saved the cast of Law & Order SVU, you must save them. The first uphill battle our heroes are going to have to deal with is actually getting inside the building. The ninjas have turned the whole place into a killing field. It's actually pretty dark and macabre too, as some of the cops lying out there aren't quite dead yet, but the heroes can't stop to help them. Inside the building, though, Daredevil and Blindspot are shocked to find nothing, and I just don't mean no cops and no hand guys, I mean like nothing at all. A huge chunk of the building has actively been stolen and taken somewhere else. Rob the cops, a perfect crime, no one would ever see it coming as the comic ends. Alrighty then, so this has been long overdue, so let's not waste any time, let's get to it. For those of you who remember, back in the previous issue, the Hand seemingly absconded with the entirety of the NYPD. Like, literally stole the entire police station out of the earth itself. This means Daredevil is going to have to get a little bit more creative when it comes to drumming up extra forces to help protect the city from evil ninjas. First up on his list is Elektra, after all, who besides him has more experience fighting the Hand and just, well, experience with the Hand in general. Then again, with Elektra you can never really be sure whose side she's on. Then of course there's the whole problem of motivating her. She is a self-centered assassin after all, and was already in the process of getting out of town while the getting was good. The only reason she agrees to help Daredevil out is on the condition that if she does, our hero will tell her who messed with her mind all those arcs back and made her think she had a missing daughter that she didn't. That's not the only controversial draft pick Daredevil is forced to make this issue either. We still have all the locked up crime bosses from the previous issues. With the cops either dead or missing and the superhero community stretched thin, Matt Murdock uses his powers as intern mayor to get all the gang lords out of prison on the condition that they're willing to help fight back the ninjas. Matt admits this will probably hurt his overall approval rating, but hey, he ain't fighting for re-election next year or anything. This is all going to be Fisk's problem once everything is solved. Now, a land war with the Hand is going to be difficult, but it's not truly unwinnable. That is, of course, when the Beast, the god of the Hand, decides to play his ace. A terrifying bioweapon expelled from his own body that causes people to get sick, keel over, and in some cases even turn to the Hand. It's a burp, basically. He has a terrible, gnarly burp. This also apparently messes with time and space as well, which also might explain why no other international heroes step on in to lend a hand when this is clearly such a big problem. problem. Matt, having super senses, ends up getting affected by the gas first before anyone else and taken ill. Everything looks like it's lost, that is until a very unlikely ally steps out from the shadows, and I know I say that sort of thing a lot, but no, I really mean this person was unexpected. It's Father Jordan, everyone. Yeah, you remember him. He's Matt Murdock's priest, the one that he spilled his guts to about using the purple children's power to make everyone forget about him. You'll remember this guy said he was a warrior priest, part of a special order of holy Catholic warriors. Well, it turns out he wasn't bullshitting, he was 100% honest. His group, the Ordo Draconum, that's the Order of the Dragon for those of you who don't speak Latin, have come to New York to help fight the good fight, and oh my god, these guys are basically the Iscariot organization from Hellsing. They're so freaking cool, Jordan even does a little exorcism ritual on Matt to get him back into the fight and to expel all the evil he absorbed. We also learn about the group's origin. They were a set of Templars who served the Hungarian king back in the 15th century, but then they got into the monster slaying business, as you do. And now, at this moment of need, they've come to help out Daredevil in New York City. This means Daredevil quite literally leads his own crusade deep into hand territory. He even gets his own sword to start fighting ninjas with. Oh my god, this is so cool. Of course, the Beast is smart, only pretending to be in one location while he leads our heroes into an archer firing squad. Elsewhere, just to make matters worse, Fisk comes too and wants to take control of the situation again as acting mayor. As we discover, the Beast's real goal is to take City Hall. That's where Blindspot is right now. Sam was the one who did him wrong, not giving his soul in exchange for the power it took to kill Muse. Now, Daredevil and the few Draconum members who still survived are trapped downtown by archers. They know they need to make their way to City Hall quickly, but to do so on foot would be suicide against the sea of hand ninjas. Luckily, this is New York, and cops occasionally ride horses, which mean, oh my god, this is so cool. Matt Murdock and his warrior monk friends ride a bunch of police horses over to save the day. Hey, is anyone else getting a real serious Dark Knight Returns vibe right here, right now? Because I know I am, and I'm liking it. Blindspot actually talks about maybe giving himself up to the Beast. After all, he's the one that incurred his wrath. But once the chief of police discovers that Blindspot actually killed the cop killer Muse, opts to take up his defense. That seems like an odd reason to want to protect someone, but okay, you do you. What follows is the Battle of City Hall, where masked superheroes, warrior monks, and undead ninjas all fight in downtown New York. I do believe the dictionary definition of this is crazy as hell, and I would not have it any other way. Seriously, moments like this are why I read comics. Daredevil manages to summon up enough strength to defeat the Beast, or at least defeat as much as you can an abstract god like this. He'll be back, but not for a while. Sam is still horribly racked with guilt over what his choices wrought on the city. He needs to get away for a while. Luckily, we know an order of super awesome warrior monks who are looking for new members now anyway. Plus, with that much guilt and self-hate in him, he's gonna make a great Catholic, I just know it. And with that, the day is more or less saved. Wilson Fisk regains control of the mayor's office, Matt choosing to step down as deputy mayor, but not before convincing the Kingpin to drop his anti-superhero agenda. In the light of, well, you know, the superhero saving everyone in New York, including Fisk himself. On his way out the door, though, Matt does manage to overhear Fisk talking to Wesley about how they did indeed fix the election. And with that, it looks like Matt has his new mission right there as the comic ends. Alrighty then, so picking up with this newest arc, we actually get some fallout from the previous arc. As I mentioned before, Wilson Fisk is now mayor of New York, and he was just embarrassed by the hand, which means he's shown weakness, and because of that, New York's criminal underworld has turned into the Wild West, with everyone, including perennial D-lister Hammerhead, all jockeying for control and recognition. So much to the point he's decided to set up an actual bank robbery, something no self-respecting criminal does anymore. It's too dangerous and you can steal more with a laptop these days anyway. Daredevil makes the scene to break up the robbery, and we're treated to our first of what will be many beautiful Phil Noto pages. Finally this series has an art team that can stand up to Soule's writing. But how did we get here? For that, we flash back to Daredevil meeting Frank McGee, the former head of Inhuman security, now just kind of the head of nothing now. But hey, you know what? I'm sure he's going to survive Death of the Inhumans, and that's the important thing. everything. Now, before McGee got hit with Terrigen Mist and was given superpowers, he was an NYPD cop for 26 years, so he's had more than his fair share of run-ins with the Kingpin and his cronies, and as such, he's as sick as anyone at the idea of this dude holding the highest office. Daredevil says with his superhero connections, as well as his friend Matt Murdock being able to push things through in the district attorney's office, if they work together, he thinks that they can unravel the conspiracy that swept Kingpin into office and defeat him once and for all. This is going to be a lot more than a two-man operation. Luckily, Frank McGee not only has some names in mind, but he has a base of operations, a condemned library, because, well, you know, like Amazon and everything, no one actually reads books anymore. Who's on the team? Well, we got Cypher, my favorite X-Men, eye roll. He and Daredevil had previously worked together during the hunt for Wolverine. I doubt they ever found him, but hey, who's keeping track? Certainly not me. As well as Reader, yeah, that's right, the other genuinely cool, genuinely badass new Inhuman that Charles Soule's created, who will hopefully, fingers crossed, be able to survive the death of the Inhumans. It's also pretty fun to note that Reader is blind, Daredevil is blind, but he doesn't want to out himself as being Matt Murdock, so he has to pretend that he can see in front of this other blind guy. The first meeting of the No Fisks Club is going to have to be put on hold, though, because Daredevil ends up catching a police radio signal about the bank robbery. Another interesting thing about Hammerhead is how he's changed tactics. His guys aren't carrying regular guns anymore, they're carrying nail guns, which even Matt Murdock has to admit is pretty damn hilarious and pretty good theming. How did it take him so long to get here? However, comedy quickly turns to tragedy when our hero discovers that Hammerhead never actually wanted any of the money in the bank. He only wanted a large audience so he could commit some acts of terror and remind everyone that he's a big bad crook. His goons take several hostages, and Daredevil is unsure if he can even save them all, let alone himself. Luckily, one of the hostages has the heart of a hero, manages to pull deep down inside, free himself, and give Daredevil the chance to incapacitate everyone else, saving the day. It is, however, a major shock to the system, to the man without fear. He's been so consumed about trying to depose the Kingpin that D-listers like Hammerhead were actually able to get the drop on him. Daredevil figures if he ever wants to get on top of this emerging gang war, he's going to have some eyes and ears on the street, and from there we transition on over to the bar with no name, the famous hangout for the costumed criminal set. It's here we see a familiar face drinking. Mike Murdoch. Yeah, who's Mike Murdoch, you might be wondering? Well, he was another persona invented by Matt Murdock back in the 60s to basically explain away to Foggy Nelson and Karen Page about how sometimes he could see. At first glance, it would seem that Matt has dusted off the old Mike persona to be his own personal gangland Matches Malone, allowing him to get into where all the criminals congregate. Oh, but the truth is far stranger than that. You see, Mike ends up starting a bar fight after hitting on a supervillain's wife. Who should respond to this fight? Well, Daredevil. Which, as the comic winds down, would seek to imply that Mike Murdock is no longer a creation of Matt Murdock's mind, but his own thinking, feeling person. Oh boy. Alrighty then, so as we join this comic, Matt basically tells you everything I told you in the previous issue about his secret brother, Mike Murdock, who was actually yet another secret identity that he developed to help protect his Daredevil persona. Our hero admits that he kind of enjoyed being Mike. He was everything he wasn't. Brash, brazen, he even briefly considered marrying Karen Page in the guise of Mike. Obviously that didn't pan out. And Matt was eventually forced to kill off the Mike persona, but gave him a heroic death along the way in hopes of simplifying his life. Well, as simple as your life is when it routinely involves magical ninjas. And now, out of the blue, Mike Murdock is seemingly standing right in front of Daredevil. Obviously, our hero isn't dumb, and so he quickly jumps to some very likely conclusions. What are you, the chameleon, Mystique, a life model decoy? Some sort of magical shenanigan, perhaps? Whatever the answer may be, it's going to have to be put on the back burner because the bad guy bar that Daredevil and his brother are standing in right now gets visited by more regulars, in this case a whole entourage of D-listers led by the Trapster, of whom Daredevil says should at least be considered B-list. I mean, he's been around this long. Old Hornhead is able to make quick work of these guys, but just when you think the battle is won, Mike comes out from hiding and really brutalizes poor Overdrive. A guy whom not only didn't get involved in the the fight, believing himself more of a professional getaway driver than a supervillain, but heck, he wasn't even drinking at the bar, he ordered soda water. Matt knows that he has to get to the bottom of this and quick. Luckily, this is New York, and in New York, there's always a guy to solve every problem. Even one that is admittedly otherworldly and weird as this one. Thankfully, Daredevil knows Frank McGee, the former head of security for the Inhuman City, and McGee knows a bunch of powerful psychics, so they opt to give this Mike guy's brain the old in and out. You'd be shocked to discover, though, that he truly does believe himself to be Mike Murdoch. In fact, he has all the memories that Mike Murdoch should have if he was a real person, but he's not. He also happens to be carrying a ton of holes in his memory as well, as if he was shoddily put together. And it's on that cue right there that Daredevil and Frank McGee think they know exactly who they need to look up next: Reader, the other Inhuman who was helping them out with the whole Mayor Kingpin situation. They had left him a bunch of boring Braille files to go over, and well, for the lack of a better word, Reader had a nocturnal power admission. And because Reader's powers literally allow him to bring to life things that he reads with his fingers, he was reading something about Mike, ergo, Mike is real now. Fixing the problem should be easy. Reader will just poof him back into unexistence, only here's the thing: Mike doesn't want to be poofed, not at all. He even takes Reader's dog hostage. Oh, the dastardly villain, he's truly turned heel now. To make matters even worse, Mike has a working knowledge of Daredevil and his powers, and because of that, he's able to give Matt the slip in a crowd of people. Of course, this begs the question, now that Mike has revealed himself to be a real true blue evil twin brother, what exactly does he want? What could he ever hope to hold over Daredevil? Well, for one, he knows Matt works directly with Daredevil, and Matt's best friend is Foggy Nelson, so if he wants a bargaining chip, he's going to have more than a loyal dog, maybe a loyal best friend. So, as we join the comic, Mike Murdoch has taken Foggy Nelson hostage. He knows that his brother Matt wants to erase him now that he knows he's just a Reader creation. But, shockingly, Mike kinda likes the whole existing thing, and because he has pretty good knowledge about Matt Murdock and Daredevil's life, he decides that the best insurance policy would be to take Foggy hostage. Even though Matt does show up in the guise of Daredevil, there's very little he can do to stop Mike from absconding with Foggy. It's here, though, things actually start to take a somewhat interesting turn. Mike sets up a meet later for himself and Daredevil, but along the way, his hostage situation actually turns into another hostage situation. Because, and get this, Daredevil recurring foe and all-around Marvel Universe shit-kicker Bushwhacker is running around with his girlfriend when he actually sees Mike and Foggy together and assumes it must be Matt Murdock. Bushwhacker gets the drop on Mike and Foggy, and he would have killed them too if Mike didn't think fast and actually save the two, proving that he can swing Daredevil's cane around and that maybe he's not a bad guy at the end of the day. Or, at the very least, is shown to be quite proficient in saving his own skin. Now, obviously, Daredevil isn't going to meet Mike as he planned. Instead, he plans to set a trap with Reader as well as Frank McGee looking on from a building far away while Matt actually goes to meet Mike. An important thing to know is that even though Mike is aware a lot of Matt Murdock's own personal life and history with Daredevil, he still doesn't know that they're actually one and the same. Mike pleads his case, saying that even if he wasn't real at the beginning of the week, he's real now, he has thoughts and feelings, and that Matt would be in the wrong to simply poof him out of reality. Reader gets tired of waiting for Matt to make his case, and because of that, he swoops on in. Surprisingly though, Daredevil actually defends his brother, hoping that maybe now that he is real, he can make some real choices and choose to be a good guy. It turns out Matt may actually have had more faith in his brother than he should have. You see, Mike's only gone for a while before he decides to sell out his brother to the Kingpin, Mayor Wilson Fisk, who at first thinks this is all ridiculous. He didn't know that Daredevil had a brother. In fact, Fisk very rightly thinks that this is Murdoch playing some sort of crazy joke on him by pretending to be some long-lost brother. Why, that's some crazy shit out of a comic book. However, when time passes and Mayor Kingpin is actually given a chance to truly think this over, he figures that it would be better to have Mike Murdock in his pocket, but he doesn't send himself to go pick him up. No, he sends the magical Hood, who says that Mike and all of the people who hate Daredevil and Matt Murdock the most have a lot to talk about as the comic ends. Alrighty then, so as we join the comic, Matt Murdock is going under the knife. Oh wow, he's dying already. Man, that was quick. This story is wasting no time. How the hell did he get here, you might be asking? Well, in an interesting bit of history repeating itself, Matt jumped into traffic to save a person who was about to get mowed down by a truck, only this time he didn't get a bunch of chemicals splashed in his eyes, he just got turned into road pizza. Miraculously, he is able to pull through thanks in no small part to the meditation techniques taught to him by his mentor Stick, who he sees too in the realm between life and death. And why yes, before you even have to ask, he is as surly as he ever was, telling Matt to stop with the hippy-dippy meditation and instead to fight through this. Now, having such a close brush with death has really changed Matt Murdock's outlook on life. He says to Foggy that he only has as much time left on this earth as he does, and he's going to make every second of it count. That means working even harder to bring down the corrupt Mayor Wilson Fisk at any cost. He returns to his team made up of Reader, Frank McGee, and Cypher, and he says that they've been coming at this problem all wrong. First off, he says that if any of this is going to work, they need to be 100% Oprah honest with each other, and because of that, Matt reveals that he's Daredevil to his team. Furthermore, Matt says perhaps the reason they've had so little success taking down the most corrupt man in the world is that they're coming at him like cops, like lawyers, playing by broken rules when in fact they should always have come at him like vigilantes, you know, like what they are. The new plan is simple: grab Wesley, the Kingpin's right-hand man, and make him talk. Obviously, Wesley will be well protected, and getting to him is half the battle. It also gets more complicated because Daredevil's arm isn't 100% repaired yet after his accident. He also comes under attack by a new mysterious mute supervillain dressed in church garb. That's funny, you know, Matt Murdock is Daredevil. I'm surprised more of his villains don't go with an angelic Christian theme. Yeah, it looks like despite some roadblocks, everything is under control now, and Daredevil is ready to move ahead with his plot as long as nothing complicates it too much. You know, like Elektra showing up naked in his bed. Ah, damn it, it just got complicated again, and kinda sexy too. So, picking up from where the last issue left off, Electra Nachios has randomly rolled back into old Daredevil's life, which I think goes to strengthen my theory that this might all be a dream or some sort of coma fantasy. They knock superhero boots, naturally, and Matt talks about how he has been very lucky in love, but not really lucky with those he loves, the women in his life normally getting hurt, going crazy, dying, etc, etc. And geez, when you stop and think about it, Elektra's been all of those things, sometimes at once. Daredevil thinks though that she's rolled back into his life for a reason, and because of that decides to ask her for help on the whole Kingpin task force. Now, not everybody is cool with this arrangement, namely Super Cop Inhuman Frank McGee, who still views Elektra as a wanted assassin. Oh, I should also probably note that after a brief flirtation of Elektra wearing her more TV show-centric costume, she's back to her original getup. The good guys' plan is the same as ever: kidnap Kingpin's second-in-command, James Wesley, and force him to confess about everything involving the vote rigging. They hope if they can go in fast and quiet enough, they can grab him before anyone even notices he's gone, and smash cut to the plan falling completely on its face. You know it's really, really bad too, because not only are they getting shot at, but Reader, the actual blind guy in this story, is doing the driving. No, it's okay, he sees through the eyes of his dog. Wesley talks about how loyal he is to Kingpin and how he'll never break, and how as it stands right now, the bad guys are still very much in the legal right, and this is an attack on the mayor's office by kidnapping the mayor's aide. So, you know, just another in a long line of reminders, as if we needed any, about how legality is not necessarily a high bar for morality to clear. Now, while our heroes are able to shake Wesley's bodyguard, the real fight is only just beginning. Their caravan ends up getting crashed by these same strange bone weapons wielded by the religious-looking assassin in the previous issue. At first, Daredevil thinks this assassin is ready to claim his head, but it quickly becomes apparent that those weapons were thrown at Wesley's head. It seems that while Wesley is loyal to Kingpin, it's not true the other way around, and that old Willie Fisk would rather see his most beloved second-in-command meet an early death than ever risk turning on him. Now, the mystery assassin ends up funneling our heroes inside a church because, of course, Daredevil needs to have a fight in a church. It's here we find out this guy's name is actually Vigil, which of course is a word with a lot of definitions, but in this case I'm sure it means the eve of a festival or holy day as occasion of religious observance. So quite literally, our new foe is the Antichrist anti-Daredevil. He's got more than bone weapons too. He's powerful enough to jump straight in the air. Elektra manages to get the drop on him, and for a second you think she might actually kill him, but Matt is so anti-murder, he's sure to stop her. Even though in observing his no-kill rule, James Wesley ends up getting killed as a result of it. This ticks Elektra off to no end, and figuring that if Matt's not willing to do what needs to be done in order to take the Kingpin down, she's just gonna take her leave. And it's on that admittedly
admittedly sad, everyone's bone note that the comic ends. Daredevil is coming to terms with just how royally screwed he is. James Wesley is dead, and with him so is Matt's chance of exposing the Kingpin for rigging the New York mayoral election. Matt is also nowhere closer to unmasking who Vigil is, Kingpin's mysterious new assassin who has dogged him at every turn. Furthermore, even though Kingpin paid to have Wesley, his most loyal servant, killed, that still doesn't mean that he's going to spare any expense in making sure that everyone else in New York is gunning for Daredevil. And the first one out of the floodgate looking to try and claim the bounty Fisk put on Matt's head is Stiltman. Which Stiltman? Well, it's funny, Matt wonders that himself. This isn't the female Stiltman, and it can't be the original Stiltman because his tech is too good. As we soon discover, this isn't one Stiltman, this is a whole army of stilt men. What do you call that, a flock, a murder? Maybe a troop? Yeah, I like that, a troop of Stiltmen, that sounds about right. As Matt discovers all too late, the Stiltmen weren't here to kill him, they were only here to corral him into the nearby sports stadium where the rest of his rogues can take a crack at him. In fact, some of his greatest foes of all time have united: Typhoid Mary, Electra, Gladiator, Tenfingers, even Akari from the Mark Waid run. But wait, that's impossible, I think to myself. Most of these guys are dead or have been missing for years. And you know, without giving too much away, if I hadn't already guessed the conclusion of this storyline in issue 1, this stuff right here would have been the final straw to give it away. Now, how does Daredevil deal with his own personal Sinister Six? Well, unlike Spider-Man, he decides to actively play everyone in the group against one another. He says that Fisk is only going to want to pay one of these guys, and it's not like they're all going to split the bill later on. And from there, old Hornhead goes out of his way to actually show just how well he knows his villains. The Claw tries to blast him with Sonics, which in turn hit Akari, which isn't used to that kind of attack. Typhoid Mary and Electro try and get all elemental, but they forget that they're in a public building, and because of that end up tripping the sprinklers and drowning out their own abilities. Yeah, it would seem like Daredevil was able to pull victory from the jaws of defeat on this one, but no gathering of DD foes would be complete without Bullseye, probably his most hated foe. Bullseye gets the drop on a tired and ragged Daredevil, and he would have been able to finish him off too were it not for the late intervention of Mike Murdoch, Matt's former fake brother turned current real brother who managed to show up just in the nick of time. Pretty damn convenient, right? Well, in the next issue too, Daredevil questions this. After all, he and Mike didn't leave on the best terms, and even though Mike seems to care very much about his brother Matt, Daredevil and friends did indeed try and wipe Mike away, so why is he willing to help out now? This is a question that will have to be answered another day because Daredevil ends up coming under attack by Vigil, who just so happened to know exactly where he was. If this all seems really suspicious, and if it seems like several suspicious things are all starting to pile up, well, you're correct. It's a tough fight, and Daredevil only manages to get away because Vigil kicks him out a window. And that, children, is called what again? Yes, that's right, defenestration. That's our word of the day. Now, things really start to heat up in this finale when Daredevil, apropos of nothing, decides to eavesdrop on a conversation between one of Wilson Fisk's fixers and the Mad Thinker, who is both still in the main 616 universe and sporting his old haircut, even though if you've been reading Marvel 2 and 1, you'll know he started masquerading as Reed Richards. This might seem like a plot hole at first, but it really isn't. You see, Mad Thinker was the one who used his intelligence to help Wilson Fisk fix the election, and he would have gotten away with it too if Thinker didn't get greedy and start demanding more money very loudly and very publicly. Matt thinks this is the ultimate piece of ammunition he'll need to finally bring Wilson Fisk down in a court of law, and thankfully, because a few arcs back, he and Foggy managed to enact a new law that allows superheroes to take the stands in matters like this. It's time for Daredevil to get up on there. But you're probably thinking, hey, wait, that happened quick. What's stopping Kingpin from just killing Daredevil once he takes the stand? Well, funny you should mention that, because the entire superhero community has shown up to support Matt in taking down the Kingpin. Hey, wait, if you're all here, who's defending the city? Alpha Flight? Ultimately, though, it's Kingpin himself who ends up hammering the final nail into his coffin. They attack his vanity on the stand, and he snaps at the prosecutor, making himself look incredibly guilty in the process. Big Willie style ain't used to getting spanked this publicly, and because of that, he starts to wonder why he even bothered running for mayor in the first place if it was only going to have so many eyes on him. The Kingpin is impeached, and peace once again reigns in New York City. Well, as peaceful as New York City gets, and if all of this seems like
everything just sort of fell into Daredevil's lap. Wait for it. You see, Vigil is still around and still gunning for Matt Murdock, even though the Kingpin has gone underground, and that's because, well, Vigil was never hired by the Kingpin. And so the satanic-themed superhero and the church-clad criminal have themselves one final dust-up, where Matt finally unmasks this foe, only to reveal his own face underneath the mask, and then Styx, and then Foggy's, and then Blindspot's, and indeed many different people. And that's because this entire battle that Daredevil has been fighting against the Kingpin, none of it has actually been real. I hate to say I totally called it in issue 1, but I totally called it in issue 1, everybody. This has all been a dream that Matt has been having while surgery was done on him after getting hit by the bus in the beginning of this arc. Daredevil wonders to himself if this is how it's all going to end, not with a bang, but with a whimper, never knowing if Kingpin is brought to justice for his crime. But Matt also thinks to himself that he's fought this battle before. He's fought it many times, in fact, over and over, and if he pulls through, will he only do it some more? Is this maybe, just maybe, a good death? At that time, too, he actually ends up seeing the ghost of Karen Page, his first love, taken from him too soon, beckoning him to the other side. And on the final page, as things go dark and Matt's pulse flatlines, we are met with the words, "I cannot see the light, so I will become the light. I am not afraid. I am Daredevil." And it's on that truly gut punch of a note right there that Daredevil issue number 612, the finale of the death of Daredevil, comes to a close. And in fact, so does Charles Soule's years run long on the character come to a close as well. What did I think of it? Well, I'm a little disappointed that I called the twist ending literally in issue 1, but then again, I like Soule's work so much, I'm uniquely familiar with it and was able to pick small little things out. I do think he managed to bring Matt's story full circle in a lot of ways, and I like the idea of giving him one happy, sunny victory, even though his life is so routinely defined by tragedy and loss. And I would call it a good death, and especially a good death scene, but we know this isn't really the end for Daredevil. They've already announced a new number 1 written by Chip Zdarsky, and a little mini-series to tide us over in between. You can also still read Daredevil over in the pages of Marveled Knights, so this isn't one of those absence will make the heart grow fonder thing. He didn't really go anywhere, except for on TV. There, he's truly dead. Ultimately, though, I was satisfied with this ending. I'm sad to see Charles Soule's go, but I'm interested to see where the book is going to go in the future.